Yep.
Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Tom is not joining us this week because he's a loser and not available at this time of day. And frankly, I was willing to toss him to the sharks just right overboard when I had the chance to bring the entire Facehammer crew on to discuss the sons of Behemat, these new giants that we're all very excited for. So go around the horn here. Russ, how you doing, sir? Good to have you on.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Les, how you doing today? Oh, Les is muted. We couldn't hear him.
Les is muted.
He's the only one.
He's the only one whose audio is not working.
That's all right. I could just hear him beforehand, so we'll get him in a minute. We'll get him back his sound back in a second, I'm sure.
We'll insult him in his absence.
Hey, can't say anything. And Byron also. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fine. I'm fantastic. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. I'm so glad to be doing this show, especially with all of you. Les, are you back? Nope.
No.
Nope. Play around with it. It's funny because when we sound checked before the show, it was like, yeah, no problem. We could hear him fine. He was talking. It was all good. And then as soon as we go live, there we go.
The one time we see Les in a non-Apple product, he's never gonna let us live this down.
There you go. There is a little settings option down at the bottom or in a little kebab where you can play with your microphone.
Yeah,
and
if you click on the ellipsis.
Yep, there you go. Cool. All right. So, anyways, let's start off with some news, gentlemen, and I'm curious as for your takes on this stuff. So, first of all, the rumor engine's up. I won't ask you to speculate too much, just in case this is a thing that some of you may or may not know about. But I was very excited about it. It's a cool bone sail chain wing thing. I don't know what it is. I'd like it to be vampirates, but yeah.
I can tell you exactly what it is.
It's
a skull on a chain.
There you go. Nailed it. With some kind of sail slash wing behind it. Yeah. Exactly. Nailed it. That is. I
don't actually know what it is, by the way.
It sounds strictly on canon, whatever it is. So
yes, it's got skulls, it's got chains, and it's got some kind of tattered wing flesh. So it's definitely Warhammer. That's what we've managed to put together here. 100%.
Oh, we got Les now.
Hey, Les.
Hey.
There he is. Yay.
I'm back.
Let's hope it's vampires or pirates that are waiting to be vampires or anything of those nature.
That'd be fine.
That'd be fine.
Any of the above.
any or all of the above. Obviously, we had the Gridiron preview this last weekend with all of that stuff revealed. So, are any of you guys Warcry or Underworlds players? Any of you into that stuff?
I kind of like Warcry. Me and Russ have been to a couple of Warcry.
Go on, get it in now.
I just want to say,
I know you're going up to it now. Come on.
I'm just like, should I get my trophy and show everyone
when I go on? Show everyone
I beat you on table one
the last
when the event. Yeah, I just want to get that in
there. I'll give you that one. It's fine. I play Warcry a bit when it came out. I haven't really touched it, and Underworlds, I own a lot of it and don't tend to play it, but I do like it. But it's just time, innit?
Yeah, sure. Exactly. That being said, what did you think of let's look. Yeah, they showed the new Lumineth Realm Lords. We all saw that. They were fine. We all liked the Swordmaster. It was great. Happy times. Truly, that Swordmaster did look great. Even I must admit that. However, let's talk about what really mattered out of that preview. How awesome was that Slaanesh Warband?
It's amazing.
Exactly. Thank you. That's right.
Sexy cow. It's all about the sexy cow.
A cow that makes you slightly uncomfortable because it is so attractive. Yes, that's what I like. I like to question myself deeply when I have to look at a model. And that's what that Slaanesh Warband made you do.
Well, I'm going to say that's very, very thematic. So
yeah.
Did the question is, did it make Byron question being a vegan?
Not one bit.
Did it quite tempt you that much?
I will not be nibbling on any bits, be they haunch or titty or otherwise.
It's okay if you don't chew. No, sorry.
There you go.
No.
The thing that was funny to me about it was in a couple of the Slaanesh models, we saw that they're wearing the similar balloony hammer pants. I do love that hammer pants are apparently in fashion in the Mortal Realms this year. First we got Teclis. He's got his hammer pants. Now Slaanesh. They've got their... It's like the sort of Persian-inspired hammer pants, right? Clearly. They're all wearing the Jasmine pants from Aladdin.
Yeah. I like to think it's more like MC Hammer You know, I know people say that GW is kind of stuck in the past, but you know, they're trying to catch up.
Yes.
One fashion mistake at a time. No, I'm kidding. No, I do like the. I think the models are great. So it's nice to see an aesthetic for Slaanesh Mortal rather than just like Mortals painted purple. You know, because you've got the acolytes for Zinch, which they've got a very unique aesthetic, and the Warcry warbands. I think the Shadespire warband, or Underworlds, I should say.
Underworlds, told off. Yeah.
The Underworlds warband is particularly cool for the Zinch, so it's nice to see.
Yeah, I agree. Here's what I'll say. Whole army of these win. Let's go. Get them in my hands. I've got the money. This is a take my money now situation. Between that and the Lord of Pain, I think was his name. That's coming in the
I particularly like that model.
Oh
that's
my
like
god,
my favorite Chaos model for a long time.
Yeah, blew me away.
If you've got the money, do you have the hours for every single pendant, feather, gem, doobie, what's it? That they're not going to be bajangles. Bajangles everywhere. How many contrasts? 17 different, like base coat and then 17 different selective contrasts. I think they're amazing, but looking at them, it's just hard to work out a way to make these happen solidly quickly, in my opinion.
I think they do take a lot of time. In fact, one might say, Byron, that they require an of time to paint. Huh?
Fantastic.
I
mean, one person may say that.
Yes.
And he's in the call.
I'm okay with it.
They're like, we'll make the models so like traumatic to get through that you got to really be into it to get through it, right?
Yeah, it's got to be pain to get to the pleasure of having the painted model. That is the story of Slaanesh. Yeah, that's.
But I think they offset it with the brilliant Daughters of Cain snake, which has got
everything,
all the luggage from the entire army on its back. They went, well, let's make the Slaanesh models look less busy by making the busiest model ever.
They're just like over here stealing your thunder, like you.
Very excited for her too, I might add. Both of those figs were like both those new leader models were incredible. So, yeah, excited for that. We've got the new Warcry box obviously going on pre-order this weekend. We got some stats for the speaking of Daughters of Cain and that snake lady who's showing up. Daughters are clearly going to be getting some stuff here. Because we got the scroll today for that Warcry warband, and it was interesting. It's not often I say the Warcry warbands are interesting in AOS. Did you all get a chance to look at the stats today for that one?
No.
No. Me and Russ looked at them a while ago. So I can't remember it. So you're going to enlighten me and like jog my memory because it's been a while now. Yeah,
I'm happy to enlighten. So two interesting things about them. First, there was a fun little thing that was put up on the website for them that they then changed the verbiage to. The community team changed the verbiage to, which I will read now. As handpicked agents of Morathi, the Cainite Shadowstalkers will find a natural home among their elven kin, the Umbraneth. Cool name. No idea what that is. That disappeared a few minutes later, so there we go. But as well, the cool thing about the Cainite Shadowstalkers, like attack-wise and damage-wise, they're fine, of course. Like all these Warcry warbands, I mean, none of them are, they're not your hammers, they're not your anvils. But every round, instead of moving, they can just teleport and show up 9 inches away from anybody. That's just the standard way they can move. The whole warband can just boop, boop, pop out, disappear, appear somewhere else. And I started immediately thinking of Calibron lists with a couple of groups of heart renders. So I've got like 4 potential threats on any objective at any point in time. You move off of any objective even a little, I'm taking it from you. And I thought that was just that'd be some really nice play there. So I think that's a cool addition to the army.
Is it a genuine unrestricted? Doesn't matter if you're in combat, etc.
Correct. Yep.
Wow.
Just you can teleport. Yep. Instead of moving.
Yeah.
So you're going to see those on the table. I
think so.
That's what I'm telling you. Like that is a good chaff unit. It's also it's untemplized. If you understand what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't have like Hagnar or Calibron or something.
It doesn't restrict you what temple you can take, basically is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm saying that's you're gonna see that, because that's real threatening in an army that already had a lot of mobility and obviously ability to reach out and threaten objectives, especially in something like Calibron. My personal favorite. I know everybody's always on the Hagnar train, but come on, cool kids play Calibron. That's all I'm saying. And you want to be a cool kid.
Cool kids don't play Daughters of Cain, mate.
You're gonna get told off in this video rather than me, Russ.
Oh yeah. It's not our channel. It's fine.
I've been told off for my description of certain books. Said like Cities of Sigmar, but not stupid.
Hey, look. I played all basically mostly Snake. Like I had to have a couple of the normal girls for obvious, like just Chaff or whatever. But my army was.
You mean 2 units of 30, or you mean?
No, I mean 2 units of 10. 2 units of 10 was my only, and they were both Sisters of Slaughter. But 2 units of 10 Sisters of Slaughter was my only non-Snake things in the army. So I feel like, and I'm playing in Calibron. I feel like I played the fair version of the army. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. I think you've earned your stripes there to say whatever you like, basically.
There we go. All right. So, and now if you're talking about Tom, he was on the how many units of 30 can you pack in Hagnar cheat train that made me go that
choo choo blah.
Exactly, correct. Yeah. Yes, that is the appropriate sound. So, all right. Also, as well with Warcry, we got the new Alliance books coming, which looks like it's going to wrap together all the rules so for people who couldn't get the cards from stuff like that, and have the faded quests.
I hope they tone them down a bit.
Which ones?
They tone them down a bit. The non what I call the non-official warbands.
Oh, the non-chaosy.
Well, yeah, like the ones that weren't released as like Warcry standalone box sets. Because when we went to that event, the
one that I beat you at,
that one.
Yeah.
The non-Warcry warbands just seemed like a notch above everything else.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends. Like some of them, I feel like are in line, but honestly, you look at something like the Gits. For example, I think
that was the worst.
I think the Gits warband is one of the strongest in the whole system, because they can play everything from just the cheapest, most ridiculous flood the board guys up to just absolute beaters that smash into things at high speed and do outrageous damage, and they've got everything in between, right? They're versatile, they're mobile, they hit hard, they chaff. Yeah, and they have good abilities too, like good on card. You know what I'm saying? Like the Warcry card abilities. So, yeah, no, I agree. I would be fine with seeing them sort of rebalanced. I mean, when you look at the new city stuff they published recently, that felt pretty in line. That one didn't feel too crazy. So, we'll see.
Be interested to see how it all turns out. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the actual game and seeing if there's been any changes.
Yeah, sure. Like, I do have questions as to what the new box set's going to bring us, because it could bring a lot of changes. It's a good game. I mean, like, we don't have enough time for a normal game and just don't want to really think too hard game, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, it is just the fun, relaxing game. It's kind of
you're collecting Sons of Behemat now, so it's fine.
I was going to say, is that your segue?
It is. It's going to be a big segue. That is what I'm going to talk about that later as being a strong positive. Like, no joke. It is a very low stress army. We'll get there. All right, and then the only other news is we're getting a new painting handle in November, which
there's I hear they're doing a version of on the end or a jewel to fit with Slaanesh.
Yeah.
See, now that's how you make that joke properly, Byron, and I do love it. Too many people with that joke. It's a blunt instrument, but no, yours. No. Perfect.
This is why you got some Englishmen on, isn't it?
Yes.
Finesse.
That's that English humor, that dry, perfect humor I'm looking for. All right. So that's all our news. We're plowing through that because I want to get to these giants. We're coming in hot like a giant dealing mortal wounds, just smashing through the news. Like, I don't care.
And Russ is giving me the stop it eyes as well, so...
The stop it eyes. I like it.
Yeah, there's no edit button when we're live, is there? So that's the...
There is not.
Yeah. Lucky Byron, but don't be yourself too much. It's bad.
We've all got to not be ourselves too much, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's like when you meet us in real life, it's like, yeah, actually.
No, we're okay. Just got to keep the swearing in check, haven't we? We don't want to swear too much.
And I'm not drinking, so everything's fine.
Oh, okay, good. Well, it's 10 o'clock. You'd be perfectly fine if you had a drink. I wouldn't hold it against you. All right. So let's talk about some pick of the week stuff. Facehammer crew in general. I won't go around the horn, but is there some stuff you'd like to share with everybody out there watching? Some videos, some blogs, anything like that you'd like to draw everyone's attention to or boost the signal on?
Russell, you can make this choice.
Not me, and doesn't have a massively vested interest in plugging their own stuff.
Yeah, I heard Artis Opus have done some good videos.
Oh, they're really good. They're so good.
Honestly, this week I haven't done anything other than have my head in a Space Wolf commission, so I've not done a lot of internet surfing. Obviously, when you create content as well, you kind of your spare time is putting that out. So we just released 2 Sons of Behemat shows, which have gone really well. So if you want to hear what we have to think about them in a lot of detail, then they're worth checking out. And I know there's a lot of different people releasing content on that, and we've been tagged in that I Am a Wargamer series by AOS Coach. So we've got our video in post-production, pre-production. I don't know how you say
one of those.
One of those 2. But I haven't really been on the interwebs much this week, so I don't know if Byron has got anything that they've been.
It's been very difficult. We've had quite a hefty week so far with some stuff going beyond the scenes for what me and Russ do to help out GW as well. So that's quite busy time for us. And I've been again, AdMech commission work, which has been quite good. I know without being too sort of plugging and pointing to our own stuff, it's I'm not sure if anyone's seen, but we've released some really nice objective markers that I think that was a really nice thing.
Everyone's going to be dislike.
Yes, dislike. It's an advert. Come on to show an advert. No, I'm only joking. There's been I just think that for me, the weekend, and I know we covered it briefly, is that the only things that I've really been excited about and sort of been looking at has been the the Warcry stuff. I'm super into those Dark Elf models, the K-Knight guys, particularly the one that looks like Waylander from the David Gemmell book, the 2 crossbow guy. So I mean, that's what I'd be looking at. Other than that, there's been some really cool conversions on Twitter. I believe the guy is called Ricky Smith. I haven't got my with his Gargants. That I think they've been really, really cool. So if no one's seen those, I'd definitely go and check those out, because I think there's just a lot of options, and he seems to be throwing even more money at those kits to make them look cooler. So it's
Ricky's conversions are incredible. I'll include his Twitter down below afterwards so people can go follow him. He's doing such an amazing job with this army. He obviously did the converted Empire army before. Or Empire's the wrong thing, but we're going to say cities, whatever. He had used a lot of Empire stock stuff. And it was Empires, Industry at War, Empires of Industry. I don't remember the exact name, but it was incrable. He even made his own fan-made battle tome for it. The man goes all out. It was incredible.
His battle tomes were really good. That was one of the things that drew me to his profile originally, was the whole sort of the Engines of Industry stuff, wasn't it? And he was making mech stuff for his Cities of Sigmar army and wrote his own sort of fan fiction book, kind of like what Tyler did with the Tomb Kings and stuff. So it's really, really interesting to see how his stuff's sort of progressing. And obviously there's another guy, Damien Pedley on Twitter. He's really, really good with his conversions, some more 40k focused stuff. He's doing really, really nice Death Watch Marines. So that's the stuff I've kind of seen, other than the obvious Warhammer community articles that have gone out.
Damn it, you just took mine. I was going to say it's a little bit straight down the nose, but there is a great Warhammer community article, and we are talking about large giants that have been turned into other types of giants, and I think that's a really good place, especially if people aren't some of them out there are gorgeous and just incredible to look at. But if people want to look at not all of them in there, because some are very, very, very involved, but there's a couple of really simple ideas for customizing your giant and putting your own spin on it, or having it to be kind of aligned to a particular chaos god or stuff like that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certainly room here to make them your own. We'll get into it a little when we get into the giants themselves, but if you in the beginning in the section, they talk about what these giants look like in all the other realms. And they have descriptions of the giants from Shimon, and that are all like bespoke and have metal hammered into their flesh and stuff like that. And the giants from Shaiish that are like ashen and have spectral spirits just kind of trailing behind them. There's like so many cool ideas that are just right there in the tome for people to convert on, and it's completely in flavor. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You can still easily just put like the right weapon on it, or maybe just stick to a single head or something like that, and know which one you're dealing with. So it's not like it's a problem. So
well, you're not going to have that many on the table as well, even if you do get crazy, right? It's not impractical to say the one with the outrageous chaos axe is this guy, the one with the crazy bow for a hat is this guy,
right?
And then the other one's the one remaining one. Like, your opportunity for getting lots of giants on the table are very slim unless you're playing 10,000 points.
Which sounds amazing. So it's going to be a little while before I get up to 10,000 in this army, but.
That'll just be a football game. Your objectives would just be like
everywhere. Yes. So for myself, those are all good suggestions. I do want to just hammer home that the Facehammer crew is putting out some of the stuff onto YouTube from Facehammer Worldwide. I will link that down below with their channel, so you should go check it out. Their review was really great. I did listen to you guys' entire review, as well as I think everybody else's before I did this show, which was good. I got to hear the whole range of thoughts before crystallizing my own.
So yours is perfect then. Yours is distilled, percolated, spot on.
It's filtered. I don't know if we've gotten it perfect yet, but it's filtered. It's filtered by time and some kind of Brita-like filter. Yeah. So at any rate, let's talk some quick hobby time, and then let's get into this, guys. So, Russ, cool. I think you already mentioned what you're working on, but what has been on your table? Anything besides Space Wolves?
Slaves to Darkness army that I'm building. So from the Facehammer Worldwide, I started my Sorcerer. I've built some Varangard and stuff like that, and obviously you've got the Sons of Behemat behind me. So I'm planning to do those as a corrupted chaos warband. So I'm probably going to end up buying a couple Knights and Magnus the Red to go with it. So it's like the most expensive army in the world. But yeah, I want to basically use the artifact on a Kraken Eater and do him like corrupted by Zinch. So I'm going to do like eyeballs in his skin and stuff like that, and feathers and things like that. So it's going to be a bit of a slow burn, but yeah, I'm quite looking forward to getting that. But I've been doing commission painting, so basically just been painting Space Wolf lines all week, going slightly mad. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, these giants do lend themselves to going to chaos really easily. Like that's just such a fun aesthetic. So can't wait to see how that looks, man. That's fantastic. When you say the knights, do you mean like what kind of knights? Like
chaos, the Knight Desecrator.
Okay, so the Imperial Knight, but Chaos Knight. Yeah, okay.
The Chaos version, yeah. So
yeah.
I figured you can use like the spikes that are on it to coming out the skin, or the banner.
Yes.
Some of the chains, the leg guards could probably go as like shin guards, or even like on the arms, on the shoulders. Might make a gut plate out of the Knight shoulder pad.
Love it. There's 100% that would fit so amazing. Those big spikes. You can just set them right into the back of that flesh so easily, and then it's just gonna look awesome. Plus, they have the chains going between them and stuff too. Yeah. Just super chaosy. Exactly. Dig it. I dig it. Les, what about yourself, man? Is it just AdMech?
No, so other than my commission painting stuff, I did paint a Sequitur for Stormcast General Sequitur over the weekend, just as like a palette cleanser. I keep every now and then I'll pick up a model and I'll try and emulate as close as I can to the heavy metal style, just as a way of trying to level up and be, because that is the end goal for me. I mean, there's lots of amazing painters out there, but if I could paint a Marine to the same standard as a heavy metal style, that would be like, my dream. So I've been working on doing that every now and then. So I've done a couple of other bits, but I did a Sequitur at the weekend, and I've been I assembled. We've had like some games recently, like myself, Byron, and Russ. We played like socially distanced gaming at a friend's house, Car Breakspear. So I built all of my Lumineth stuff for that. So I've been really excited about getting and painting some more of my Lumineth stuff. It's just finding the time to do it with when you paint for a living, because of like me and Russ, obviously both commission painters due to sort of like COVID issues, we shall say, in the UK. It's hard to find time to do your own hobby when you're painting for other people, particularly if you've stopped just done like 8 hours painting somebody else stuff, you kind of like just want to like chill out really. Plus all of the content we're doing and other stuff has been difficult, but I'm hoping to get some time on my Lumen F-Force, which is done in the sort of like the Sire paint scheme out of the book, with the marble bases. So that's what I've been looking at doing more of those. I want to maybe start painting Avlanor, because of the list that I've sort of like leaning towards is mostly Alref units around the Metrica sort of Grand Nation. So that's kind of where I am. But yeah, that's other than commission painting and that secretary. I've been thinking a lot about Luminous stuff, but not actually getting to paint any of the Luminous stuff. So
that's all right. It's all right. Cow elves, best elves. So you're making good choices in your life. I like that.
Yeah.
Byron, what about yourself?
I turned a rogue idol into a gorilla. So that's a fantastic endeavor. It actually turned out really well.
Any purpose behind that, or just that felt like a conversion that you needed to have in your life?
Like you joke, but the second one entirely. So basically I really, really like the pose of the Thundertusk Stonehorn kit, and I think GW knock it out of the park whenever they go kind of natural world focused, and that lots up front, smaller at the back, like Bulldog or Gorilla pose. I've always found really, really kind of, if something needs to look aggressive, I think that's a great way to do it. So just by tilting things around at a different angle with a Rogue Idol, I repositioned him a little bit. It's probably like 3 or 4 hours work to get it all assembled, including the stuff you do that normally takes a couple of hours anyway. And it does happen to be the most forgiving kit in the world for doing that type of thing, with like, you wouldn't know if everything had gone wrong once it was painted.
Sure.
So that turned out really, really nicely. And then I have actually been doing a little bit of Beastman stuff too. So I'm starting on basically a nightmare themed Beastman army, which is the most wide open theme you can ever imagine. The guys can start making jokes now. No, they're holding them back. Look at them. How polite of them.
Just we'll be here forever, mate. Like,
oh, stop it. Yeah. Anyway, it happens to be wide open thematically, which is convenient for me because I don't want to be restricted. Given how I am, I just want to pick nice things and put them in my army if they look scary, and that was genuinely the idea behind it. So I've ended up with what looks like the most weird demon prince you've ever seen, which involves Dryker and a flesh eater caught stomach from somewhere, and then a Citadel Skull's head and some Frostheart Phoenix wings. So it's kind of going towards Nightmare Fairies is where that army will end up, I think.
Well, that sounds amazing. 1. 2, the Phoenix wings to make as Demon Prince wings, I fully support. My like converted Be'lakor I did this as the exact same wing, so I'm all for this idea. Do you have any like concept of what you want to focus on, Beast? It's a huge army. Like, is there particular elements that you like, particular units you want to have in there that you've got ideas for?
Like from a gaming perspective or a visual perspective?
Yes.
Yes. So gaming wise, I'm actually trying to play with stuff that I don't think is very good on purpose at the moment. I've tried to Russ about this at length, and it's a topic I don't want to go into too deeply because I think it's a huge one and interesting, so I won't shut up. But basically, I've realized that if you play an army that almost instantly dies the moment you make a mistake, it's the fastest way to learn getting better at the game. Many armies, you realize you made a mistake like 2 turns later, 1 turn later, like right. 2 phases later, stuff like that. I've been playing with Bone Splitters, which die to anything due to bravery, and there just being no saves in the army unless you're a Rogue Idol, broadly speaking. And the idea is I want to up my level of play to what I think it was a couple of years ago. So I've been doing that with them. And basically, I just went through the list of books I had and picked out the one that I think is arguably amongst the weakest, and again does that being not hugely resilient. You'll know the moment you've screwed up. Yeah. And that was Beastman. So continuing on the theme, if anything's too good, it might not go in there, and I just want an army full of glass cannons, I think, because that also fits with that. So there will probably be a couple of Chimera, maybe a few Cockatrice, and then I'll fill the gaps with whatever lets me do it with the least models.
I love everything about what I'm hearing here. I've been a stand for the Chimeras and Cockatrices for a long time. I have like 5 Cockatrice in my Beast army, so yes, I support this. more than you could actually use because I don't know when to stop. Which
you haven't seen the list that I've been writing, mate. You're way off.
But I think the fact that
saw someone post a picture
of
like 18 cockatrices or something on the table.
Yes. Yeah, because they're just other units. You could just go nuts with them. Like they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
90 points, 90 points, 90 points. Mm-hmm. You can do that quite a few times until you've run out of points.
Yeah, and they're all just throwing around blood boils every round. I mean, they're just little blood boil machines. 4 up, D6 mortals. It's a blood boil. Everybody loves blood boil, and so why not have 15 things that can blood boil in your army? It's pretty good.
Exactly that. So the idea roughly is a couple of Chimera, a couple of Cockatrice, maybe Jabberslithe because conversion abilities are just wide out there. You could do whatever you liked.
Sure.
And then minimal models for the rest of it. So there will be some mortal wounds at range as a theme from models that hit hard but can't get hit back.
Yeah, I love it. I like the idea of the army with no forgiveness because I think there is some armies like that where it's you're absolutely right. There are some armies where you can kind of just screw up and it doesn't matter. The army can handle it. Right? It can just, you didn't position exactly right, but it doesn't actually matter much and stuff like that. But there are some armies that you're always feeling like you're dancing on the knife's edge, and it's like you may take one wrong step and you're going to know about it immediately because you just lost the game. And you're right, it is a good way to lose and learn at the same time.
Absolutely. So. And I think there's plenty of other armies that are an equal power level, but you might just not know as immediately. And because it just makes it more obvious. If you're going for like an educational purpose, then there's armies that could be better at being bad, as much as that makes sense, but you don't know about it until you realize that your slow army was out of position 2 turns later.
Right.
So fast, fragile, etc.
I like it. Yeah. I like it. For myself, my hobby time, I'm working on Frank here. I'll hold him up. Frank is the 3rd Gargant in my Crusher unit. The other 2 are already done, and so once Frank is done, then I'll have the whole unit completed. He's got the most like little spikes and little power bits hanging out of him. He's got you mentioned the Chaos Knight there, Russ, and he's wearing one of the like Chaos Knights face masks or whatever. They fit right on that head perfectly. So. Great bit there. And all my Crushes have chains on them because they're all, like they all have chains around their necks because they're all just, I picture them being led around by the big guy who just like grabs all 3 of their chains and he's like, come on, we're going this way, you dum-dums. So I'm excited about that. Got the 4th one already converted. Once I get these 4 painted, then it'll be time to get out those big Mega Gargants and start chopping and changing them as I start cutting up those overtly expensive kits to convert them. So, but on the bright side, I'll have a lot of extra pieces. Maybe in the end, I can just build a whole extra one out of the pieces. We'll see what happens.
Build a giant-sized Chaos Spawn. That'd be interesting.
There you go. Yes, I definitely will have the parts for that. I actually got together like all the extra because I already had an army of giants before I did this, just for a hobby project a couple years back. I put together an army of 10 giants. And so it's from across sort of the history of giants. I have like the Albion giants in there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I got together all my giant bits and made sure they were well organized. And I was like, holy crap, there's so many extra bits. Because I mean, before this, I'd probably already bought 8 of the regular giant kits beforehand. So I have just all the Johans and cages and little, like the street post sign with the skeleton pointing or whatever, all those little...
Classic bits.
Yeah, exactly. Just all those great bits. It's still a good kit for bits, no doubt. All right.
You could put the cow on the head for Tom,
There you go.
So.
Exactly. Just all cows. I have enough extra cows that when he finally breaks and decides to collect Lumineth, I can just ship him all of the cows. This is like a couple different cow type things. I'll just ship them all to him and be like, here you go for your basing material.
One a day. Just one a day. every by the 30th day, it's like, what are you doing? Just
exactly.
Like Chinese water torture, but with cows.
I love it. Well, now I know what we'll do once he finally breaks. It's only a matter of time. He'll break eventually. All right. So, gentlemen, let's talk about some Sons of Behemat, shall we? I've got my book here right beside me as I lean out of frame. We've got our book. And I want to start with just some high-level thoughts. There you go. That's right. Nice. like, give me the pitch of how you feel about the army at sort of, 40,000 foot. Your overview, strengths, weaknesses, just how you kind of generally feel. So, Russ, kick us off.
I think they're an army that, on paper, when you look at them, probably look a little bit simplistic and a little bit shallow. But I think when you get into it, there's quite a lot of variation to play with. I think they're a lot of fun. I think they're a great army if you don't want to feel overwhelmed learning too much, because a lot of books, when you play them, you're kind of like, oh, I need to remember this and this buff and this area and this. So it's actually quite liberating playing with them, and I think it really helps your sort of micromanagement of piling in the combat phase. So I think it really does help you be a better player in that regard. But I think overall, I really like it. Obviously, I think it's. I was a bit concerned originally because, although I'm a playtester, with this project I didn't really playtest it, so I was a little bit like, can they really be anything than a gimmick army? And sort of pleased to think they can be more of that. So yeah, I think they're decent.
All right, right on. Byron, what's your thoughts?
I think if you like exactly what Russ said, but part of the reason why it's so difficult to analyze them initially is that you're using a load of metrics that are based on Warhammer as we know it, and these are not Warhammer as we know it. Like, there has never been this many wounds in the same place multiple times on a table of Age of Sigmar, for example. And the list of things like that, it's not very long, but it's very significant. So I think it's a very underestimatable book, and it's also a book that, particularly given that Corona is a thing, it's going to be very weird putting it on a table because people just haven't faced stuff like this before. Anything else in the game, if you manage to do 30 wounds to, it's got less on an objective than you. It's also hitting you back it's either dead or it's hitting you back with 10 dudes maximum or something like that. And these guys don't do that at all. So I think it's kind of fascinatingly different and maybe an antidote to a lot of particularly stream examples of armies that are out there at the moment. It will have some awful matchups, which is like anything that is kind of polarized being a small amount of very large models which don't have an elite level save. Regardless of how many wounds they had there, if you can do a load of wounds at range that are medium quality, you're going to suffer with them. But I think they're really, really interesting. I don't know exactly where they fall within the barometer, but I think that people have graphically underestimated them because they're trying to estimate their power on a load of metrics that just are basically irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Les, what about yourself?
Well, the guys have kind of covered it quite well. My thoughts on it, obviously, being a playtester, initially you get the book and you look at it and go like, there's 4 war scrolls, like how good is it going to be? But I think it's one of these armies that, as Russ touched on, when you see it in the book, despite, like, we're all good gamers here, we can open up a book and like pick out the best war scroll straight away. I think this book definitely benefits from actually getting some table time. I think everyone massively underestimates the amount of damage they put out, particularly when you have, the mortal wounds on the charges, the grabs. It rewards clever play with regards to piling in and regards to how you choose where you sort of like deliver those wounds. There's a lot of damage there coming out of a relatively small base size. So if you like mitch it into 30 witch elves at the front of them, you're going to die. But if you tag it on the corner and, with that 3-inch reach, you can pile in, you can do lots of different stuff. I think, you look at it on paper, it's very underwhelming. Play a game against it. And I think if you play someone who is a good Age of Sigmar player, it's going to surprise you, but just because of the fact that you're just capping those objectives. It's an objective game at the end of the day. It's like all your giants can die, but if no one can score the objectives because you've got X amount of models holding the objectives for 4 turns, it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah. Like I went on a long journey with this book. Okay, I'll be honest. Now I've been stoked for this forever. I went and pulled the clip at some point in time in 2016 I said, you remember when they came out? God, I don't even remember the book now, but there was like the Sons of Behemat battalion, right? That was back in
Grandalight's Destruction.
Thank you. Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
And on that show, I was like, you know what we need? We need an army of giants. That's what I want, more than anything. I mean, I told you in 2016, I did a whole giant army as a hobby project. It was inspired by that single battalion, right? Which has long since not been part of the game.
Yeah.
So, like, to say that my expectations for this book were overinflated or high would be an understatement. The way I would summarize it is this: it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, right? The epoch of belief and the epoch of incredulity. There we go. Tough word to get out, Mr. Dickens. Ultimately, I am almost of completely two minds on this book. I've gotten 3 games in so far with them. And my honest answer is that I don't know that I've had this much fun playing with an army in quite a long time, other than the only other army that I think I enjoy this much is like my Iron Jaws. Now, I am super Timmy. Like, when I fight with a big monster, literally in my head, this is not a joke, I mean this. When I attack in and swing in with a big monster, in my head I'm going, "Arr!" and I'm making noises, because that's what I want, right? I want a thing that feels big and smashy and scary. Like, I love big monsters. And playing this army is really fun, and you don't get that just from reading the book.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Like, when you actually pilot this thing, when you steer around your Mega Gargant, and he's like 35 wounds even on what he is, especially, by the way, if you happen to have like a War Stompa with his little rerollable save, you will steer this guy around, and you'll just be like, what is this? What is this? One of the games I played, I had like an Ogre Tyrant came up and attacked me. And the Ogre Tyrant had like his Giant Slayer trait on him or whatever, so he did more damage to monsters, and I was like, get this nonsense out of here. This is ridiculous. So he comes up and swings at me a little bit, paws at my leg, and then I just crush him like an ant and continue moving, right? And you will have those moments, and they just feel incredible. Like, it's so awesome to pilot this monster. It feels more monstrous than I think other monsters. And like, I love big monsters. I have 2 Archeons. Okay, like, I really cannot impress this as much. But I am profoundly disappointed with the book at the same time, because I feel that there was a lot of like choices made that were derivative of their greatest strength, and those choices hurt my personal overall ability to enjoy the book as much as I could. Okay? I'm going to unpack that, and then I want you guys to actually like give me some thoughts on this.
Okay.
So the greatest strength of the army is undoubtedly its objective control, right? I mean, we have all got to agree on that part, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that your little babies count as 10 or sometimes 15 if you're in a particular tribe, meaning a unit of them is like 30 or 45 for objective counting on basically nothing in base size, because those guys are on teeny tiny baby bases versus how big they are, right? Like, that is an incredible amount of capturing power in a small space. And the fact that the big guys count as 20/30, again, depending on tribe, right, is just so freaking powerful. Like, people will underestimate this. People will not understand that, like, you will toe in to that 6-inch ring and just be like, well, this is mine now. It doesn't matter that you've got, 15 dudes on this. I threw 1 rock at you. You only lost 1 guy. This is mine now, right? Or whatever. But that rule is so powerful, and it necessitated everything else in the book to be adjusted to where it is. Like, there's not as much synergies as you would expect with other armies. There's not as much power. They don't, like, I know you said they hit hard. I mean, they do. I don't worry. I've got a PowerPoint presentation. I'm sure we're all excited. I have lots of comparative metrics for exactly how hard they hit. And yeah, sure, they hit hard. Not as hard as many things in the game, but they hit hard. And so their damage had to come down. Their defense had to come down. Their available synergies had to come down. Everything had to come down, because if they had that kind of objective-taking power, and they could ramp themselves up like other things could, like if you could make him as offensive as you could make a Mega Boss on Maw Crusher, and by the way, those two aren't even close. The Mega Boss can, like, there's easy math where the Mega Boss 1-rounds your Mega Gargant. 72% likelihood. Okay. So that's like, but if you could ramp the Giants to that level, it would be a problem, right? It would be a problem because that Mega Boss is one guy. Ultimately, he's one model. He toes in, he's one model. That's it. He's not 20 or 30 models. So his point, like, my point is that one choice influenced everything else in the army, and that's why I actually don't like that one rule. I would have rather seen that wheeled back, changed, struck out, not use the ogre rule, had some different take on it, because the type of play it ultimately encourages is non-engagement. Like, your better bet is always to slide up, take the point, not fight. Because in fighting you could lose. Your little baby Gargants die like that. I mean, their wounds will evaporate like a puddle on a hot summer day, right? And so your best engagement is the right way to play this army is engage as little as possible, take and hold every objective, retreat as often as possible, win by numbers. Kill when you can kill and kill unopposed, right? Like when you come in and smash somebody and they don't pose any threat back, do it. Otherwise, fight as little as possible, retain as many units, hold all the objectives. And if that rule wasn't like that, if the rule was, I'll just throw something out there. If the rule was like, Mega Gargants automatically count as taking an objective if they've slain models on a unit currently holding that objective and they're within range of it, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they count as one model. So they want to be fighting, okay? Or whatever. Like, you can structure that rule in 50 different ways. But my point is that would fundamentally change the way that the army wants to play. And that's my ultimate challenge with it. Is in my head, this was big, stompy, smash, I go around and fight everybody. But sort of the fun way to play the army and quote-unquote maybe the most competitive or right way to play the army isn't the same. But I'm interested. I'm keen for your thoughts on that. I know I just rambled for a long time.
It's quite interesting, actually, because I think like some of the stuff you said with the comparison with the Maw Crusher, Russ played against an Iron Jaws army with quite an offensive Maw Crusher build. And I mean, maybe Russ can sort of big one. Maybe Russ can unpack and sort of like give some examples in that.
I think I disagree with what you're saying to a point, because I think the strength of the army is the mortal wounds on the charge.
Okay.
And what I think you want to be fighting in multiple places because you'll generally kill what you fight. And I know people can talk about damage to the cows come home. I'm not interested. There's a good reason why they're damage to, because it makes them more consistent. The fact that they survive well, and so if you commit to the giants in multiple places, you get to maybe spike one giant if you commit an awful lot to it, but you're going to lose your other stuff. So you've got to kind of try and pick them off piecemeal. And I think from the games I played, certainly I played against OBR, I played against Big War twice, I played against Flesh Eater Courts. I took a charge of a fully buffed up Terrorgeist with +3 attacks, reroll to wound with its maw, didn't kill me, a bit lucky on my part, but then I killed it in one round, because I countercharged it. My guy retreated off with his couple wounds left, and then you get this feeling and like they are outnumbered, and they're trying to drag you down, and you're being attacked by lots of little things coming at you from different angles.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of feels that kind of aesthetic of them like being like Gulliver's Travels, lots of stuff trying to drag you down, lots of little annoying things. But I think they're strongest when they're hitting you all at once, because it is just overwhelming, especially when they got to start splitting their attacks between multiple Gargants. I know what you're saying about the retreat and that, but what you don't want is the opponent to be able to charge multiple units into one, kill it, then charge multiple units into another one, kill it.
Sure.
By going in multiple places, you're going, right, not only have I done mortal wounds to you, you can't, if you retreat, that's fine because you're not hitting me, but you also can't concentrate your attack power on my Gargant because you're engaged in multiple places. So I kind of disagree, because I think at the end of the day you want to be fighting, because you need to kill their stuff before you get overwhelmed, and you need to get up on the objectives. And most missions, you're both going to have to go for the objectives, so you will end up fighting. I do understand what you're saying, that sometimes it's better to retreat and still have a toe within 6, then you still get that objective and things like that. But Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I played against. I play a lot of combat armies, and I don't think they feel any different to any other combat army. When the mission dictates, sometimes you go, actually, it's better for me to step away from this fight rather than fight. But if it's your go, you get to go first. Normally, there's stuff out there that you don't, but that's different. And at the end of the day, they do put out a lot of damage. If they put out too much damage, then it would be ridiculous. You would steamroller, and it's quite interesting because during the playtest we actually made them more survivable, because we gave them more wounds because they were dying too easily. We found.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, and my experiences obviously might be different. So the 3 games I got in were against, a 1-drop, no, I'm sorry, 2-drop change host, against a purely offensive Iron Jaws, and against ogres. Okay, like against not Boulderhead, but against Blood Gullet ogres. Okay. And, so the change host was a non-game. Like, I'll just lay that out there. That was a non-game, right?
It is for a lot of armies, though, right?
Sure, I don't disagree with that, but that was like, in a round he lifted 1,000 points in my army, and the next round he lifted the last 1,000. Like, that was, it was just like, yep, okay, that was a fun non-game. And against the Iron Jaws, what was funny is that I found myself not wanting to charge often. Okay, like now, what I mean here is depends on how your army's constructed and what you're dealing with, right? Like, obviously that's the case, because I think to me, and this is getting too deep into it, but like, to me, you often want to have singles because you need singles. You need single babies. I'm just gonna call them baby giants and big boys. So you want some single babies around because you need them to like just be floating units that can threaten objectives and chaff and do all the things that other armies normally do with your 180 point guy. And that one guy going into anything is not a win. Like, he's going to die instantly if he goes in and attacks most anything. Because I mean, he's 12 wounds on a 5-up save, right? I mean, that's the raw math of it. Like, we don't look at any other unit of roughly 10 guys on a 5-up save and go, that's a survivable thing, right? Once we take it out of when we move it away from a 4.5, 5-inch tall model, right? Nobody's looking at that going, this thing's definitely going to survive. But it's super powerful because it's 10 dudes. So I would always tow in, take it, hold, and then that guy would get blown up. In the Ogre game, it was interesting because I buffed up, I buffed as much as you can. There's almost no buffs in this army. But I took I was playing Stomp a Tribe, and I took my 3-pack of Crushes into a unit of 12 they were super buffed ogres. +1 attack, +1 to hit, 6 on mortal wounds in the bite. They had they hit jackpot on the ogre slot machine. Okay. Now, it's important to say I had nothing to say about that, right? I couldn't stop it because all the spells just either went or they didn't.
Yeah.
And I killed 9 of those ogres outright, which is great. Like, that's 36 wounds between the charge and the fight. That's pretty great, right? Like, no joke, that is a ton of damage to that unit. Stomp a Tribe, little baby Gargants. Believe the hype. They do hit like a truck. Okay, like, yeah. I'll rep that 100%. Those 3 ogres then pulled 2 giants to the ground on the pile back. Right? Now, that's slightly higher than mathematical average, of course. Right? But my point is they are absolutely and should be treated as made of glass. They will break.
I think babies. The little ones especially.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is maybe the mistake people make, is that the little ones are kind of your hammers and the big ones are your anvils.
I think that's probably right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I played with 3 mega Gargants and 3 little Gargants. So I had 2 breakers and a Kraken Eater in the breaker tribe with +1 to hit against flag waving idiots. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. There are weaknesses to the army in the fact that you are restricted in what you've got because you don't have a breadth of stuff. But it's still the same as a lot of other books out there. And I think from what I was surprised at when I played with them, from my experience of playing with like Flesh Eaters and Legion Nagash and other books, they didn't feel like they were like lost like they were just like they just didn't compete on that level. And even playing against like a pretty honed big war army, I went into it on like turn 2, went straight through it in 2 turns basically. Not even breaking a sweat, didn't even lose a Gargant. Then we re-racked and played again, and James played a lot better, and it was a combo charge from my Gargants, took it out. I was able to counter charge, and then, but by the time we got to turn 3, I was so far up on objectives, you couldn't come back from it.
Yeah, I think that there's, and I want to get Les and Byron back in here too, because I know the two of us have been going for a while, and they just had to sit here and watch us talk. But yeah, I think it is very scenario dependent, right? There are going to be scenarios that I think are really, really hard for this army, almost matchup independent, right? When I think about something like Star Strike, where you don't have a chance to, where basically you're not doing the majority of your scoring until, into turn 3. That's a tough scenario, right? Because by that point, you've probably lost a decent part of your army. And so, like, that's... how often Star Strike shows up in tournaments, whatever, right? Like, okay, we can talk about that. But whereas if it's something like... I don't know. If it's something like... honestly, maybe even like something like Places of Arcane Power... I think that's actually a really strong one because your megas can actually go and hold pretty easily. You can bring the little ones around to Chaff. It's almost impossible for them to get enough bodies there to get you off of it once you're on it. And if you've got a kicker, then you can even position your army in a more strong place, right? And we'll talk about like the potential FAQs that are out there for this army, because there's a couple that I think are the way they come down will be impactful. All right. Les or Byron, what, like, we've been going on. What other? Yeah. So, like, what do you guys think? What do you got?
Do you want to go, Byron, or do you want me to go?
You can go for it.
I think with the Giants, and there's a lot of stuff out there, is that realistically there are a couple of non-matchups for nearly every army in the game, like low drop KO, change host, stuff like that. No matter what you're playing, if you're playing Techless, you can get shot off just as easy as by a lower drop KO army or a change host army. I think the strengths with the book is when you play someone that actually wants to come and fight you. Particularly on the mission setup, as you said, Star Strike's going to be a difficult one, but any sort of mission that you can essentially outscore and outfight your opponent on,
right?
It's not easy street. They're not like a push. I don't know if maybe the internet was expecting them to be a push it forward, deal a ton of damage style army, or not. But to me, even though they're like a low model count, I do feel that they could at least compete in a tournament. Let's say, which I don't see why. I mean, was everyone expecting them to be like a 5-0? Is that what people are upset? They wanted to push it forwards and smash. I
think that. Just real quick on that, I know I wasn't expecting that, and nor would I want that. After playing Slaanesh for the better part of a year when it was overpowered as all get out, which left a sour taste in my mouth. It wasn't fun. I shelved the army in September last year because I had so little fun playing it. I never want that again. It's awful. It's really unfun for everybody. I do think, though, the thought might have been that, yes, the fundamental question this army will ask is, can you handle the thunder? The mountains rumble, the towns shake, the rivers dry up because my catastrophe, that's literally what a group of giants is called, according to the book, my catastrophe is coming your way, right? And it's a little more finessey than that. And so I think that there might be some mismatch of just expectation there. Not in competitiveness. Because I agree with you, Les and Russ and everybody. I think ultimately it is actually a competitive army. Again, there are going to be non-games. But that's, like you said, I agree. That's true for everybody. I don't think the competitiveness is actually the challenge. That's not where my sting comes from.
Yeah. I mean, I think a couple of things you outlined in Russ touched on this briefly is you just described playing with a combat army, dude. Like it's a lot of good Iron Jaw players will know, like, slightly annoyingly, that the times that they've done really well is where they kept on fleeing with their blob of 30 Ardboys, and their idea was not to fight really, apart from reactively for an entire game, and they stood in the way and made intelligent decisions. And then, like, there are a couple of key bits where once you've gone something buffed up and damaged it so it could move after it teleports, and you had a reliable charge, you went in there with something that is, I don't know, like the cliche would be 6 pigs that have been war chanted or whatever, and then they do go and wipe something out. But a lot of play with armies like that, it's just how armies play at a high level. If they're a combat army, you don't have the option to reach out and touch things as much, and this army does have more of that than most armies that are this combat focused. They do stuff in every phase apart from the magic phase, you could say, and I think that is very easy to underrate. Like it comes from more sources than any other combat army that I can think of. Like, someone might be able to correct me on that if there are any exceptions or formations or stuff like that, but it delivers enough that it becomes more reliable. Whereas if you're used to playing, I don't know, 2 more crushers, like, that's like, you can't rely on that. You can rely on this, and you add the rocks in and stuff like that, and that helps the fact that when you do go into that thing that you should be worried about, I've been saying Maw Crusher a lot, but you already used the example. So Maw Crusher, if you've taken it down a few pips, it's not going to hit you as hard, and you've got so many wounds that you might survive for 2 turns, rather than you thinking that you weren't going to survive for 1 or something like that. I think that the use of the ovals with the small guys is really important, and in particular, things need to stand next to other things if you're going to play this intelligently. Now, obviously, you've only got a limited amount of bases on the board, a very, very limited, the most limited ever amount of bases on the board for this. But and there is so much flexibility playing with an oval. I'm going to say a load of stuff that sounds really obvious, but it's tiny here and it's wide there. So if you send in 1 big guy with 2 ovals next to it, and they want to get through to your big guy and he's just smashing face, they're going to have to split attacks. And this is much easier if you don't take a 3 of the baby giants, that we're calling them, because people don't have a decision there. They can't over allocate, they can't under allocate, and that's when you're going to punish your opponents. It's the same as any combat army or any MS multiple small unit army that has made multiple charges on something. If people played in that style before, the real power to those is where you end up pinning something, and particularly when your army, whilst pinning things, is for the larger part going to be outscoring it on an objective. I think it's very easy to just not realize the strength of that. Kicking is unique like that. You just have to kick something backwards once, and your opponent's plan has been ruined in a way that it's never been able to be ruined in the game before. Part of your protection as well is getting into combat. Because, again, talking about the blocking up and the bases and stuff like that, is putting your opponent in really awkward, stupid decisions, picking things out of units, and forcing pile-ins in areas which is going to restrict their next turn of the game. That type of stuff. It really, really adds up. The bases are big, but they're not that big. And the moment someone's put, if anything is scary enough, apart from a few exceptions like a zombie dragon, when you're standing in the middle of a naked board or whatever, the moment you are in the thick of it, your opponent has less ways to get at you. And you're going to be doing, probably, if you've got multiple things in there and you're making them split, more reliable damage than they are. You get more decisions, especially with your 3-inch reach. Like, so many things out there are 2 inches or less, and frequently are 1 inch. That the amount that you can get touching you, obviously I've not touched on shooting, the amount you can get touching you is actually very limited, but it's only limited if you're not like a blob in a like an all-encompassing circus of witch holes or something like that.
Sure.
So I do think the restrictive blocking is just colossal. It's a really, really difficult thing to kind of be able to describe how powerful it is until someone goes into you and they realize that they've done 6 wounds here, 6 wounds here, and they did like whatever it was, 16 here, which was double what they needed to kill 1 guy, and then you just muller them back. Or you just do a lot of damage back, and then you scored for long enough. And I think they are an army that could frequently have no models left on the table at the end of turn 3 and have won the game mathematically at that point, which is it doesn't always feel like a pure and crisp, like down the line victory, but it is how the game is won. I do see what you mean about the power of the objectives, but I mean, I'm not a playtester. I don't know if that was part of the process, if it was considered like that. But I think one thing to bear in mind is every time an army has come out that has been graphically different from what has existed before, or like even going like harking way back to ogres in 7th or 8th, I can't remember which one it was.
I thought it was 6th, but yes, I remember the release of the book because my friend immediately went out and bought the ogre player I played. He bought that army like day one when it came out, and he still has it to this day.
Yeah,
for 20 years of pain.
That day will come. But whenever something this different comes out, in order to not make like, I don't want to bag on them, they're great, but there's a reason they're always the answer to every good army in the world. Eels. I think erring on the underside rather than the overside is more sensible. So I don't know if that was a calculated decision where they ended up or something like that. But when something is that different, I think it's the wrongs of it being overpowered are just far greater than the rights of it being potentially a tiny bit under the level or conservatively, pointed, costed, ability or something like that. And I think historically, if you look at the game, that it's always ends up like that because people are trying to design something that's never existed before. KO, perfect example. I mean, their day is really well and truly come now, and that's not. I'm not like condoning it, but I just think it's factually something that is very likely to happen. Yep. I'm not saying they don't have competitive play; they do absolutely, and I think they're more likely to come on the powerful end of a good roll of scenarios for you than become undone on a bad roll of scenarios for you. So I think there's actually, people don't seem to have discussed this, but if you go to an event, there's more scenarios that can roll up in your favor than not in your favor. And you could just end up literally ruffle stomping through 4 games without having to do much. Particularly, there's so many scenarios where you start close to people. We went through the scenarios and analyzed them in our last show. And it's surprising how many, I believe, are either neutral or in your favor. And you do look, and you're always going to think of the ones that aren't. But yeah, I think.
No, and also, I mean, like, look, let's not underplay things like there's a lot of scenarios now that are granting bonus points for things like Battle Line or Behemoths or Leaders, and you very easily have all 3 of those in the mix all the time, right? Like, the fact that your entire army is basically running around with all that stuff makes it quite easy. Yeah. So no, don't. But if people haven't played those scenarios with those new extra bonus point scoring and seen how crazy impactful those things are to the game, they're crazy impactful. And so the fact that you have easy access to even just scoring those extra points all the time, it means a lot. It does.
Especially when you score early, I think. Like, if you're scoring early and you're scoring whatever it is, 10 to 20% more than you would be, that can just make you uncatchable, even if you are dead at the end of turn 3.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, ultimately, look, if I had to plant a flag in the ground, you want my, ultimate guess, right? My ultimate guess is it'll be sub 50% win rate, but above 40% win rate, and it'll soundly land in the fat middle somewhere. Okay, if I had to pick a specific number, I'd say 42 or 43%. So it'll drift closer to 2 and 3 than 3 and 2 overall. Now, I have a lot of different reasons for that belief, mainly because of what's good in the meta right now, and I believe that, like, there's just a lot. It has a lot of natural predators. Those things could adjust over time.
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares? That's all. Like I said, ultimately, I think it's competitive. And Byron, the thing you said that I want to, like, hone in on and say I completely agree with is, do you know how happy I am that this army exists now? It exists. Who cares? Like, in the end, part of me's like, look, I'm playing the long game here, okay? I bought my Skaven in 1998. Sometimes they were the greatest army in the world. Sometimes they were horrible. Edition to edition, book to book, rules to rules. But I still love the army. And the first step is you got to exist. We can fix it later, right? Like it'll go. Every army goes up and down. It has the roller coaster of time. So that's why I don't get too hung up on, like, competitiveness. I think it's competitive enough. I think it's solidly in the fat middle. I think you'll compete. I think you'll surprise people. I think smart players will be able to negate a lot of the tricks that you're going to have. Like, there's counterplay there. That's not a bad thing, by the way. I think that's a good thing. Like, that means that smart play pays dividends, which is, I think, how we want the game to work. And so you will engage in that kind of match, right? Where you're trying to make sure you land the multi-charges. You're trying to make sure you can grab at the right models, pick the right things out of the unit, break coherency at the right times, and they're counterplaying you, trying to make sure you can't do those kinds of things, right? They're trying to set up against the terrain so you can't get in there and block off the other part of their army from then countercharging you, or, right?
Yeah.
And
I think
that's good.
One of those plays to your advantages, though, the thing where if people are trying to, like, triple stack ranks in order to stop you from breaking coherency, that often results in people having less attack density and less models close to an objective when the army that you need both of those to beat this army, which I think is a particularly interesting thing to consider. The more intelligently people play for long-term survival, the less intelligently they're playing for killing you and also scoring the objectives.
Yeah, yeah.
What I like about this,
Good.
Just to chime in a little bit,
Please.
because I've been reading the chat and stuff. So obviously, some people talk about comparing them to Beastclaw Raiders, and I played an event with Beastclaw Raiders just before COVID happened. And in my opinion, they play very similar. I think they're a little bit different. They're a little bit more. They're less susceptible to being like charged on one shot than what BCR are. Obviously, the event I went to, you weren't allowed malign sorcery artifacts anyway, so you couldn't take like the Thermal Rider and stuff like that.
Sure.
So for me, like, I prefer the play to Beastclaw Raiders. I think the reason for that for me is because it feels like you can't make a mistake, because you've got 4 or 5, you've got 4 units, you know, you've got 4 things. If you misplay one of those things, that's 25% of your army, like, that you've thrown away or you've played incorrectly, or, you know. So I think it's got that element of like, I agree with what you're saying. I think if you take player skill to an average level, I think you're sort of talking about a 2-3, a 3-2, depending on missions and things like that.
Yeah.
I think there will be some outliers, because I think if you get the rub of the green, because you need the rub of the green, what you play against, what scenarios you get. But if you're particularly good with a combat army, I think it gives you all the stuff you need. And I do believe that. But I think as well, one thing that's probably important to touch on is, because of the lever that we use on stuff is normally points, right? So adjustments is points to sort of handbrake stuff into where it needs to be. You can't really do that with this book.
Yep.
So from my point of view, I think with the limitations of the design space in the number of war scrolls, what's in the book, I think all the tribes are viable in their own different way, and I think they've done a really good job of releasing what I call a mature book, whereas other books will come out and they might be a bit janky, they might be a bit like, oh, this is a bit too powerful, but then it kind of gets fixed and falls. I mean, Slanesh is a prime example, and it falls somewhere in the fat middle, if people want to use that term. I know all about fat middles, but that's different. So, like, for me, it's like, but that's where we want stuff to be, right? You don't want stuff at the 5-0, the 4-1, the polarized. This is the where it needs to be.
When
I think for me, like, and I know there's some people calling us like sort of derogatory names about how we talk about stuff. Didn't believe it, I wouldn't say it. But the thing that frustrates me is when you see people out there that want to love it, want to enjoy it, and they're being told, don't even bother, it's awful. That's just the opposite way round of someone saying, oh, they're going to win everything. But it's encouraging people. So I think it's just being realistic. They're somewhere in the middle, but they're totally fine. They're not garbage. And I think people saying that is putting people off enjoying the hobby or doing the thing they want to enjoy.
I want to just chime in real quick, Russ, because I want to back that up. Like I said, I've had 3, even the Change House game, I still had fun. Like, it was a non-game, but I still had fun. It's hard to really, and maybe this is just my psychographic profile that I love big stompy monsters like I do, but like, I really mean it. Like, this is a fun army to play. It's also low stress in a way that's hard to describe. Like, if you've ever played a really tooled up Skaven army, you have a lot of different things you're thinking about and remembering, because everybody has, like, every unit's these different cross effects going on, and who's going to need to charge here, and I'll scurry away here, and this needs to be like this, and don't forget when you use the command ability, you're rerolling on a 5-up to get it back, and also this, and is he going to eat the warp stone, and it's just like, it's this incredible web of rules you memorize in your head.
It's bookkeeping and like mental baggage is the two that the way that I describe that. Yeah.
And it's not here in this army. And I don't mean that as a negative. I just mean, like, it is fairly direct. You actually win by the little tactics, like the decisions you were talking about, like what you were saying, Byron, less through what you're, like, what's printed on the thing isn't what you're needing to remember. What you're needing to remember is how to play a good game of Warhammer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, and also at the point at which people are using what does a unit of witch elves backed up by a hag as a metric for what's acceptable in combat, we've already lost that. Like, that is I'll be polite. That's not an intelligent way to look about measuring things reasonably for the long-term health of a game. Like,
Byron, you've given us the perfect segue into PowerPoint time.
Okay.
Are you unhealthy?
I've prepared a little PowerPoint here. I'm going to bring that up. Let me make sure hold on. I've got to change my picture so I'm small enough, so I'm not blocking my own PowerPoint. One moment. Boop, boop, boop. Make myself small. You guys are covered for the moment, so people won't see you, so you can feel free to pick your nose or whatever like that. People will just see it as
I don't believe you. It's a trap.
All right. So let's go. Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay. So let's go to our giant breakdown. Here we go. All right. So these are the things I've listed as the strengths. You all tell me what you think about my strengths list. You ready? Objective
You're such
control,
a nerd.
Power per square inch, simplicity, moderate drops, impact hits, single target model killing. Like the fact that you can pick models out of units, stuff them in your pants, that kind of thing. These are strengths. I think they're really strong. People underestimate this stuff. These all feel fair? Or anything I missed that you want to add?
Multi damage and multi phases.
Okay. You mean like, because of charging and impacting and then combat?
Yeah.
And I'm not back in the rock throws, by the way. That is I'm sorry, man. I can't get behind you on the rock throws.
No, that's fine.
They just do mostly nothing.
My game.
So I think I could quickly get in because I know that we've got a PowerPoint coming and everyone's salivating. But people are very used to measuring, especially shooting, by seeing it very effective in stage 1, being hitting, somewhat effective in stage 2, somewhat effective in stage 3, and somewhat effective in stage 4, being like wounding saves, after saves, etc.
Sure.
This army does badly at stage 1 and way better at the rest because it's difficult to hit, and once it does, it's much more likely to wound something, which I think to some degree makes it controllable for picking out key pieces. And you will do less wounds, but if you want to kill that guy, when you do hit that wizard who's got 3 wounds remaining, the moment he takes a wound, he's dead. So I think stuff like that is easy to underestimate, and I guess a lot of it rolls up into damage and multi-phases, but I do think the sum of that is far greater than its parts.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
fair.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get to the math of the rock throwing later.
Yeah,
it's in
here.
Russ, Les, anything I missed as far as strengths? I mean, these all seem fair, and I think these are really like real strengths of the army.
I think you've put the power per square inch, which is the point that I thought you might miss, which is the fact that you deliver a lot of power in a small space.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's to me.
I don't think it's
so
underrated, and I know you talked about it on our worldwide show.
Yep.
You talked about that delivery.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would almost argue you've got defense in a small space as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. And that's why I like to think of it generically like power, right? Like anytime if you've got a model that's hyper defensive and can just sort of pin a unit on the corner and not die ever, and like their only choice is spend 5 turns the rest of the game trying to pile it on you and never bring you down, or just retreat and waste a turn. That's such a wonderful thing, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, they're very fast, all of them.
Who, the Giants?
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Limitations. All right, next slide. Limitations. I've got 20 of them.
Okay? Oh, amazing. Okay, yeah.
Now, here's what I want to set the stage here with this, okay? This is just meant to be a representation of stuff. This is not meant to mean this is why the army's bad. Everybody's going to think because I put a slide up that said limitations and you don't have this stuff that I'm saying it's bad. It's not. Armies don't need all this stuff. Most armies don't have all this stuff. Cough, Seraphon, uncough. But like, and armies don't necessarily need these things. I just want to be factual with people about the types of things you're not doing in this army, right? It's just a statement. I am putting no normative, good or bad, weight behind it. These are just meant to be statements, but I'm interested. No battalions, objectively true. No allies, no chaff, in the traditional sense of how we think of chaff. No command abilities outside of the Stompa tribe, which has its own very strong limitations, because you can't use the normal game command abilities instead. I'm going to call it low defense. That's what I'm going to call it. Not no defense, just low. Like, there's a lot of good defense in the game. They don't super have it. Low mobility, and what I mean by that is not like they're all okay on speed, 8 to 12 inches. Blah blah blah. Stompas, run and charge. Okay, whatever. That's not nothing. But my point is with that is really no teleport, no ambush, no ultra high move speed, flying, 16-inch moving stuff. Multiple armies have those kinds of things.
Yeah, I guess I should have said high average speed.
Yeah,
not individual, which is true.
I would absolutely agree with you on that, Byron. That's totally true. No magic outside the Kraken artifact. Now, obviously, there's an FAQ question there is, does the Kraken artifact actually make you a wizard and hence able to use endless spells and stuff like that? TBD on the FAQ. I would argue, obviously, that's what the intention of it was, and so I hope that's how it comes down. Seems pretty obvious to me that's what it was. So, okay, cool. We can probably not worry about that too much. I think, yes, of course, should be the answer. No prayers. Low shooting. I didn't say no. I said low. Minimal power projection. No summoning, healing. It's hard to dig out. This is one of the things you mentioned earlier of being able to bounce back from bad moves. It is kind of hard to dig out with this army. No activation wars. Not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I'm happy to not see it. Point is just it's there. Some armies do have it. They don't. That's okay. Max 1 magic item because you do have no battalions. No way to get X.
You can get 2. Yeah, you can.
I understand. Okay, in Kraken, you can trade your command trait for a second artifact. That's fair.
Excuse me.
You had to actually me, Russ. That's fine. No free command models. This is such a little thing, but it's something I really think about a lot. Most units in the game have command models. Obviously, that's why the Idiots with Flags is the best thing to take in the Breaker Tribe. And command models often do a lot. I think of Bellringers and Skaven allowing retreat and charge. I think of how often you just see +1 to run and +1 to charge printed on command stuff, right? Yep. And that's just not here in this army. So there's little things like that you just miss out on, those free little buffs that units often carry. Minimal chaff mitigation. I called it minimal because you can throw rocks at them and hope for the best. Whatever. Low average damage by cost. We'll get into the math behind that. No mortal wound protection. No unique characters. The mercenary guys don't count. What's that?
Actually, you could take the portcullis on your breaker, which gives you a 6-up.
That is true. You can portcullis that guy to get a 6-up mortal wound save if you want to make the worst choice.
That can be combined to give them 40 wounds. We've done the maths on it.
It maths out a little bit better. It means you survive more.
No, yeah, it puts him to an average of 41 wounds on its own, right? So if you go 40 wounds plus that, it actually puts him up somewhere around 46, 47 wounds. Yeah. It's not. I did run that build. I didn't hate it, but yes, nothing outside of that one magic item. I can see I needed more stars for footnoting in this presentation.
When you play Behemat, you got to grasp at these straws.
I understand. The unique characters are not really yours, because obviously you're not going to... If you take a Merc, they don't benefit from any of your allegiance abilities, even though you Merc a giant in and you lose your command point. So we'll talk about... That's one of the things that actually makes me super sad. There are generally things that I have. No way to gain additional CP outside of buying one, or the command trait for Stompa once per game at the start of the game. Low to no synergies, and no true anvils in the traditional sense we would think of it.
I disagree with that.
I mean, I think of so first of all, I'll preempt myself with Byron's pushback on me here that it's not fair to say this, but when I think of a true anvil, I think of something like Hearthguard Berserkers or Phoenix Guard or somebody like that, right? Who has a huge after saving and just stand there and take an outrageous amount of punishment and walk.
Yeah.
Right.
What, like a 35 wound giant that rerolls a 4-up save?
Yeah, I mean, sure. It's not bad. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If you're in Stompa, your War Stompa can be as close as possible. So maybe I should have said 1.
Or you're -1 to hit Kraken Eater with 2 giants either side of him.
I'm not going to buy that one. I'm not giving you 2 extra free models. That is
no, count. two little ones. Two little ones.
That's fine. That's fine. I get it. Great. I get what you're saying.
I do think the original point that I made about I'm not negging all 20 of these, but you're applying metrics to something that when it's like these true anvils that when when half of them have died that took ages, they're still worth less than you.
Yeah.
So I do think for those reasons, like a somewhat hefty pinch of salt has to be taken whenever you're talking about stuff like that, because the game is won on objectives, and you already touched on the power of that. But, yeah. So when you've got one wound left, you're still worth more than most things in the game that are going to be left standing next to you, and that has a real power. Obviously, it makes things swingy, but games will be won with that frequently with this army.
Agreed. Yeah, don't disagree. This was more just to get it out there, and most of these things I honestly don't care about. Is my answer. I wouldn't want them in the army. Okay.
You want like 6 of them.
Yeah, like there's a couple of things. I mean, I'll tell you right now, here's one of the things that's one of my biggest problems. I really hate the no command ability on the War Scroll thing for your big giants. It really bothers me deep in my soul. Okay? I mean that honestly and truly, and I know that sounds stupid. Okay? It has nothing to do with competitiveness at all. It's just like there are 90-point corn heroes who are apparently big enough to take command of people and can do something, right? Can like boss people around in some way, right? And these are my leaders. Like command abilities are this implicit thing that leader, especially combat style heroes, tend to have, right? Like if you build a hero in AoA and you make him the commander, he gets a command ability. That's the automatic choice. You cannot build a commander melee type dude without a command ability. It's the assumed state, right? And I hate that it's not there because I feel like I lost this choice that I normally make of like, am I going to do this? Is this worth spending? Or should I just do the reroll ones thing later? Do I need to save one to reroll a charge, right? Or whatever. Like that's actually kind of fun to have that tension and make those decisions. And it's just removed. Right.
It's also a way to be able to further customize and play a limited book in a way of your choosing. So let's say you went for this, like I'm going to use the word shooting loosely, but the shooting version of this list, and it let you shoot a second time or improve your shooting attack or something like that. Yeah, definitely wouldn't be breaking things, and it would let you have more options or be able to go slightly more down one route that fitted with your theme or how you want to play or etc.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally, actually, you hit upon the thorn in my paw with this book, is that I do agree that all 3 of the tribes are playable. Okay? Don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But they're not very changing, really, in the fundamentals of the army. Your ability to make this army your own, again, I'm not talking competitiveness. That can get thrown out the window, right? That can go right overboard with Tom. Hopefully he catches that somewhere in the water before he drifts away out to sea, okay? Your ability to, like, truly make choices in the list building phase that make this army your own is so limited. Like, it's hard to lean any direction. And I don't think that's a necessity of only having 4 war scrolls. Because there's actually 7 scrolls in this book, if you count the 3 special characters, that we decided this army isn't allowed to use. Right? And
the -1 to hit bubble would be good, right?
Right, yeah, like, it would just be cool if you had, like, maybe you had named unique giants. Same kit, same stuff. Print me a Prince Vorderai, right? But when he's in the army, then this thing happens, right? Like you said, maybe the rock throwing gets slightly better in some way, right? Or whatever, you build into a rock throwing thing. Or maybe he makes the army faster, so you can go for a more speed-based thing. Or maybe he makes the army hit slightly harder, but even cost them defense. Cool. Yeah. I'd be down for that. Like, I wouldn't mind if these things were trades. Again, because I'm not looking about power. I'm just looking to make the army my own. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying in the fact that, you know, you could potentially go, well, if you have a Kraken eat your head, but rather than giving it the net and the club, you give it the guy in the hand and, I don't know, the flail or whatever. It's a different thing.
Right.
And obviously the little Gargants have got, you know, cows and cages and clubs and different things, and one's got hooves and horns, and so you could do something around that. I don't know. I wasn't really involved.
Sure.
We don't really get involved in that level of discussion.
Nor should you. I mean, that's not a playtest type thing. That would have been an initial concepting and design thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think you lose one of the most important parts of our hobby, which is the ability to endlessly write lists in your head whilst you're on the toilet because of this stuff. And that's like when there weren't points in the dark days of the beginning of the game. That's what you lost. And I think I've used a silly example, but it's literally when you're bored and you want to design something in your head because you really like thinking about this and solving problems and trying to make the perfect list that doesn't exist, you do lose a proportion of that through the lack of ability to in this list, for sure. In this book, for sure.
And I don't think any of us ever thought this army was going to be Skaven or cities or something like that. 50, 60 war scroll armies where you can just build until the cows come home. There's an infinite number of lists. That's not the fair metric, right? That's not what I'm comparing against. But there are other low scroll count armies that can still do that thing you're talking about there, Byron, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't take much. There is some flexibility, but you are pushed down a fairly narrow path in order to do that.
Right. Okay, let's do some math. We'll go quickly through this. Here we go. So here's your basic scroll damage chart. Okay, this is just your baseline stuff, and then your additional damage over on the side. I'm kind of blocking stuff still there. There we go.
Have to wait for the stream to catch up.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'll move myself here so everybody can see. That says additional damage. Boop, boop. There we go. Okay, so like your Kraken Eater averages 6 to 13, but he has the advantage of not only the impact hits, but 3 grabs. 3 grabs is like very meaningful, so let's not underestimate that, but just these are the numbers, folks. War Stompa averages 9 to 17. He also impact hits. He also has his 1 grab plus 1 throw. Side note, when I played the ogres, I managed to roll the 6 and actually grab a full-fledged ogre because he wasn't, he was still in his first damage chart, and then spike him on the tyrant. And I don't know that I've ever had a happier moment in all of Warhammer. Like, legit, it was the funniest moment in the world to me. Like, it's those little things that do make this army outrageously fun. When you grab a full-size ogre and then smash the tyrant with his stupid face and deal 4 mortal wounds, I was like, eat it, little man. So it's just fun. And then the Gatebreaker's your big damage guy with 9 to 19 damage, and he also has his impact hits, right? And then you've got the Man Crushers, who are actually your most damaging. A unit of 3 is actually your most damaging thing, because not only does it do 3d3 impact hits, I'm just assuming the 2-up, by the way, and they also do 3 grabs on the pile-in.
Did you math any of these with the bonuses, like the command abilities and the breaker abilities or anything like that?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked.
Is that the next slide, is it?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're such a nerd.
Super sick.
So let's start with a Stompa Allegiance. There's your baseline, and then so this is what your damage spread looks like in Stompa. So again, the baseline in the box is just a reprint from the previous page, right? You've got your Man Crusher against 10 models and your Man Crusher against 20 models. Your Man Crusher against 20 models, that damage spread is quite wide, being 27 to 46, but it's 27 to 46, right? Oh, and thank you. Somebody said D3 grabs on the Kraken. Yes, I wrote 3. I should have said D3. Thank you. I left the number off. But yes, very powerful. I mean, Crushes will bring it home if they get in there. Like, these guys hit like you imagine damage does. The rock throwing, the most likely outcome of one group of giants throwing rocks is 0 damage. That's the single most likely outcome, at 24%. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean it's actually the average. It's just the single most likely. The average damage is actually like 3.
What save did you do these against?
I wanted to ask.
Great question. Yeah. Everything's baselined against a standard 4-up save.
Okay.
Yep. This is all against a 4-up save. So all slides, all damage against a 4-up save.
Cool.
So, again, you're right. Like, it's average 3 damage against a 4-up save, but, like, if you throw against a little squishy wizard person with a 5-up or 6-up, you're probably on 5s to hit, but they also probably don't have a save or no save worth mentioning, and so the damage does actually change quite in their favor. So that's where I'll agree with you, Byron. So,
For me, where I found the throwing rocks interesting was I was playing Breaker, so I had two Gate Breakers, and they're damage 4, rend 3. And you get +1 to hit if you pick the right tribe.
Yep.
So what I found, what I would do is I would chunk 4 wounds off of like a 5-wound hero, and then the Man Crushers would just try and chip that last wound off.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of combat armies struggle to do. I'm not saying it's reliable. Let's be honest about this, but over a turn, two free turns, you've got 2 damage 4 rocks, the free shots from the Kraken Eater, and the D3 per model from the Man Crushers in my list, where I had 3 big ones, 3 little ones. It's enough to chip away at a monster, drop it a bracket or sniper hero, or and I think it's very easy to overlook it, that it's not a reliable thing that you're going to guarantee every turn. But this is the thing about a dice game, right? You have spikes, and
No, I agree. I think people underestimate that 4 damage throw out of the Gatebreaker. It's actually significant. It is. Like, I had a game where I managed to land quite a few of those, and I was like, wow, this actually does some work. And then the next game, I missed every one of them, and I was like, yep, okay.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. It's unreliable, like you said, but when it connects, it does do work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you got 9 Man Crushes all throwing, like say you're in Stomp a Tribe and they're just all throwing at stuff, it goes 4 to 12. If they're throwing against 10 models... Again, assuming that wouldn't get changed in an FAQ, there's no reason it should be, but if it would, it jumps up, it doubles. If you do it against 20 models, it doubles again. It trebles. I apologize. And that actually becomes really scary. So, like, if you're all in on babies and you're targeting big units, and you're using that command ability out of Stompa, then yes, you can actually deal some pretty significant damage to big units with your rocks. Notably, though, then you're not running and charging, because you have run and charge, not run and shoot, and then you only move 8, which is like not as great. It's okay.
Yeah, I think they, for me, like, I played the Man Crushers as a hammer follow-up charge, and my big guys as the anvil, so I didn't want them close to my front lines. I wanted them back, so they go onto your Mega Gargant. They might kill it, but then you follow it up with a counter charge from the other Gargant and the Man Crushers, and you should wipe out pretty much anything you touch with that.
Yeah. All right, let's talk breakers. So you asked about breakers. So here's what that looks like. So which I have comparisons in both. So there's the Man Crusher with their, if they get the +1 to hit, because one of the great things about the Breaker Tribe is the +1 to hit does extend to them. This is another thing that kind of bothers me, is that, like, the way these tribes interact with the other giants is not even, and that actually kind of bothers me, because then that even further constricts your list building. Right? Like, it'd be neat if there was more interaction. So, for example, in Stomp a Tribe, Stomp a Tribe offers 0 benefits whatsoever on that page to any other mega in the list. Right? They're just independent agents. Nothing, they gain 0 from Stomp Allegiance. They cannot benefit from any of the command abilities, nor can they you get the other ones. Right? The generic ones. Only the Man Crushers benefit from that. Whereas in the Breaker Tribe, they give it out to themselves and all the Man Crushers, which is cool. I like that. And then obviously the Taker Tribe benefits everybody the most, because it does the increase of the objective count all the way. So the Man Crushers go from 11 to 20 to 15 to 24. The Gatebreakers go from 9 to 18 to 12 to 23. So it's a pretty big jump just for getting the +1 to hit. I didn't figure it with the +2 if you happen to take Fierce, the Intense Loathings, or whatever the command trait is that lets you pick a second one, because there are overlaps where sometimes you can get +2 to hit. It's not the most common thing, but it can happen.
Did you math out the extra 2 attacks on the
using the flail? Artifact? No, I haven't, because I think there is an interesting build here. I didn't math it out, but there's an interesting build here, I think, with the +2 attack flail and the Rage Blade from the realm, so your 6s are double taps, right? If you want to turn your Gatebreaker into, like, a true damage machine, I think that's the closest you're going to get to that. Because then he's on 12 attacks, 6s being doubles, and hopefully you're getting into the stuff where you're +1 to hit. Because if you're not, that guy goes real swingy on damage real fast. Like, when he's on his 4s with his big weapon, I mean, we all know what the experience of rolling for 4s are, right? Sometimes it'll math out fine. Sometimes you roll and be like, okay, I got 12 attacks on 4s. All right, I hit 3 times. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, like, that's just... It's not that weird. So yeah, I mean, the Breaker is the damage. Here's my thought. I've found Breaker, so I've run all the allegiances. I found Breaker to be the most underwhelming. In my mind, I actually like, and maybe this is just me and my personality, but for me, I liked Stompa the best, and then I don't know, I'm really torn. Then I'm really super torn between Taker and Breaker. Side note, real quick. Gentlemen, I want an informal poll right now. Okay, here we go.
Cool.
Takers, breakers, stompas. All right? Why? Oh, why? Folks at GW, this is a huge missed opportunity. Huge. Takers, breakers, shakers. They stomp the ground. Kraken Eater doesn't have the word taker in it anywhere, but you decided on that. So, War Stompas stomp on the ground and shake it. We could have had takers, breakers, and shakers, and that would have been amazing. What do you think, gentlemen? Are you with me on this one? Is this a missed opportunity?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm with you.
I agree. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. It's definitely
I
the book.
I like Taker just because you can use all the Undertaker gifs. So
yeah,
that's nice. That's nice. Okay, but how have you been feeling? Like Russ, what's your ranking of them in your mind right now?
I've only played. I'll caveat this. I've only played 4 games with Breaker.
Okay.
I liked it. I think the additional 2 attacks on the guy made him a bit more consistent. The +1 to hit, I think, made them more able to kill stuff more reliably, and I think that means you take 1 less round of combat, which is massive.
Yeah.
So I do like Breaker. I'm Stomper. I like and I don't like it. I don't like the Iron World Cestus for the reroll saves.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, it makes a big difference.
I like the idea of it, but I also don't like the fact you can't use command abilities on your big guy.
Yeah, it hurts. It really hurts. Roll a 2 on a charge, and you're gonna hate your life.
And you only end up with 1 Mega Gargant, and sometimes you need 2 leaders for objectives and stuff. So for me, I think on terms of damage, it looks amazing, but for me, it's probably the weakest for match play. Like if you go into an event, I think Breaker's really stupid in some missions. Like there's some missions that are like hero missions, and you take 3 Mega Gargants. It's just lol mode. It's just really funny. I personally think Kraken is probably where I'm leaning purely because of the artifact, which allows you to have a wizard. So it's an unbind and a cast, and you could take endless, FAQ dependent. But obviously, I think you can kind of think, if we kind of think that the intention is they're a wizard and they can do everything a wizard can do, then I think that plays. And I think you need to have a balance of maybe 2 big ones and 3 to 6 little. So
it allows you to field them in the smaller units because you're not obsessed about getting your value out of the points as well, right?
Yeah. So I'm thinking for me, it's take a break, a stomper.
Okay. Les, what about you? We haven't heard from you in a little while.
I think with the sort of like touching on what Russ is saying, then it's like I think for me, I enjoy playing the stomper, like the 1 giant with as many little guys as you can fit in. I think it's 9, isn't it? Like points wise, I really enjoyed playing that army. I don't think it's maybe the most competitive. I think if you play some people, they just sort of like line up in front of you on the 12-inch line. You can just push that army into them, kill them, and have fun doing it. I kind of think competitively that was probably not the best. I'd probably agree with Russ that the Taker, due to the objective control, the obviously the light making them count as a wizard and stuff like that, I think that's where the competitiveness of the army is. So again, I'd probably, despite Stomper being my favorite, I'd probably rate it 3rd. So I'd go Taker, Breaker, Stomper again, same as Russ. But if I was going to do the army, I think I'd do Stomper because I enjoyed playing that the most.
Okay, got it.
That's kind of like where I am with it. I'm not sure what Byron thinks and stuff.
Yeah, Byron, what about you?
Like 6 years into this game, I still call whatever cavalry I have men on horses, so I'm too slow a learner to be able to participate in this effectively.
Because use the technical terms, right? We use the proper words.
You have to men. Yeah. I still don't know which one's a retributor and adjudicator. But the list that Russ and I had a chat about after the day when he played his games, that one, and it's Taker. And I do think what you add with the flexibility of, I know that the way I play, I would want to have multiple small units of dudes, of the baby giants, and the fact that you can take, obviously we're not talking about something reliable here, but if you do have a turn, like being able to stop someone's endless spell is a thing like that like you just get a chance at it. And because that doesn't include bonuses it was cast with, you might get more out of that if it's an endless spell than trying to stop, I don't know, Nagash at +15 or whatever. But also it does give you a chance to do a couple of things that are pretty cute, such as activating cogs for the extra spell and the saves, and being able to do some interesting things there, which is exactly the type of like finagling that I really get a massive hobby boner for.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, it's fair. Yeah, I mean, thinking about the tribes, there's little things that kind of drive me crazy, little restrictions that I wish weren't there. So, and you just kind of touched on, like, we mentioned the Stompa thing, like the fact that you can't use command abilities at all because you lose access to the generics on your big boys is like, ugh, that really hurts. Like, not even be able to activate a reroll ones or reroll a charge. Like, forget the fact of what I talked about earlier that really drives me crazy of not having a printed command ability. The fact that you even then lose those is like, man, that's really ouch,
It's good to know, again, with the 27 restrictions for writing an army.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that, like, the War Stompa himself caps at 10 attacks on the stuff around him, I'm like, why? Like, lots of things make lots of attacks. Just, I understand maybe we needed a cap. Maybe. I don't even know if that's the case. I don't see a cap on gyrocopters and or and their steam guns or a million other things like that in the game. Every mortal wound spell that's just like roll on the unit and 4 ups or mortal wounds. So if there's 40 dudes, I guess you get 40 rolls. Like, there's so many examples of that stuff with just no cap, and this is a guy I got to bring into combat. There's a bunch of little things like that kind of get at me, and I'm just like, why is that there? It doesn't feel like it would dramatically change things. It's restrictions for restriction's sake.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know whether that was reined back because there was a potential it being a little bit too powerful, and like I mentioned already, like, it's quite hard to get it out and get it right.
Sure.
But I agree with you. Like, for me, the Stomper is, I'm not really that interested in running a Stomper. My list don't include it. I think you only run it in a Stomper tribe, and I don't think Stomper tribe's where I want to go. I certainly don't want to build and paint 9 of the old models.
Completely fair. I think my list, I think, is definitely big boy, pack of 3 littles, and then 3 littles, right, is like the one I've been leaning to. And I tend to like that. That's what I've had the most sort of success / fun with. Okay. Let's do some just quick math. Here's some fun unit comparison stuff. So I've got the Gatebreaker and the War Stompa printed up here. The Kraken Eater is lower damage than either one of them, but whatever. Just I picked 2 because I needed to have enough space on the page. So here's some fun numbers for you. Just thinking about other units in the game that are around this cost. So, like, what Storm Vermin? So this is all just mathing this out, and I'll give some background here. So Storm Vermin, I'm assuming 30 out of 40 of them get to attack. And I'm assuming that they've got a Claw Lord around them, giving them +1 attack and reroll 1s, because that's how I attack with my Storm Vermin every time they fight. I don't ever fight unless I can do both of those things. So, seems pretty fair. And, like, they average 35 to 44 damage pretty consistently on that. So, that's a lot. And again, that's 500 points worth of stuff, just to keep it completely fair. The Claw Lord's 100. The Frost Lord Murderhorn variant, 14 to 27, obviously counts as 10 dudes. I've added some additional considerations of other synergies that might be in play. For example, Storm Vermin might have Death Frenzy. The Frost Lord has an Ogre Charge, which is pretty good, obviously, and does some significant damage coming in depending on what you roll. I put Phoenix Guard in because I thought they were a real interesting comparison when you put Phoenix Guard up against like what a War Stompa does on average. So this is a unit of 30 Phoenix Guard, but I'm assuming you only get 22 attack. And they do 11 to 17. Obviously, they're quite an anvil. The fact that they do the same damage as the Giant, as the War Stompa, and are, fairly resilient. It's actually kind of an interesting comparison to run the simulation of these Giants against them, because the Kraken Eater, even though he has the lowest damage, can kind of make the most headway, since he can grab, right? Like, his grab ends up paying huge dividends, because they can't duty unto death or whatever it is. Their little flame protection. They can't 4-up feel no pain it, right? And then the Mega Boss on Maw Crusher assumes he has his own +1 to hit command ability in an offense build and has a War Chanter buff. Again, I've never attacked with my guy without this, and certainly this is how I would be attacking if I was running this. I ran this army for a year. I mean, like, if my guy goes in, he goes in with at least this, probably more. and he's 21 to 35 damage. In this situation, here's an interesting bit of math. If you roll him like that, he only has about a 15% chance to kill a Mega Gargant on the charge. If you have the additional command point to reroll ones to hit, just that one command point, it switches to a 72% chance to kill the Mega Gargant on the charge.
Wow.
That's how much that math matters. Anyway, so fun bit of math there.
Yeah.
So, this is like, that's why when I said on the initial slide, like average damage, like these guys can get it done. They're not, like if you look at the Gatebreaker, he compares pretty favorably to the Frostlord. And obviously that's not the Gatebreaker with the +2 attacks. If you gave him the +2 attacks or the Rageblade or anything like that, like you talked about, he'd be right up there. Right? He'd be on the same numbers. So that's actually not too bad. Right? That's a pretty even hero, and you count as 20, he counts as 10. That's not bad. Right? But I think you do need to be like knowledgeable about what kind of damage you're talking about here. Right? It's not, you are not, you're not 30 Storm Vermin or a juiced up Mega Boss on Maw Crusher or something like that. Right? Not these hyper damaging things.
No, but what's interesting though is like when you charge a Mega Gargant with something that can do a lot of damage, there's quite a high chance you get left on a few wounds and you're not dead, and then you get to strike back. Whereas if you go in, like you lose a lot of power very quickly. If you go into something and fight and kill half a unit, or do it in a oneer, it can't hit you back, and it makes a massive difference. And I think that's the thing that's really hard to consider when you do this sort of stuff, because you just a Mega Gargant on a wound is still pretty scary because they don't atrophy that much.
They don't. One of the best things they did in this book, we didn't mention it yet, but I want to mention it. They don't start degrading until more than 12 wounds on. They have a third profile to start degrading, whereas most monsters have a quarter or less. That was the best choice made in this book, and you absolutely notice it. Like, no joke, love that. More monsters should be like that. Really good choice.
Russ took the words out of my mouth. I would love to see a second round of combat version of this against an average unit, whatever that is. I think that would be truly fascinating to see how those scales degraded between them, both in terms of how they score on objectives and how much damage they do.
Yeah, it's. I may play some of these out and just kind of share something out on Twitter or something, because it is interesting. Like, okay, if they come into you and get this, what does it look like? And based on who's charging, who's fighting first, that kind of stuff. And obviously that could make a big difference, right? You're right. The megas don't really degrade terribly. Most of them are still quite almost as dangerous as they were to start, right? Mm-hmm. And the reality is there aren't actually a huge number of things in the game that on balance have a high probability to kill them, right? Like I mentioned, the juiced Mega Boss, the Storm Vermin, that kind of stuff. Like there are, these are just my picks. A buffed Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is pretty statistically likely to take you out. But again, all of these statistics, when I say this, yeah, indeed, they all end up at like 70%, 75%. So it's not like that's in every time. That's still 1 out of 4 times, 1 out of 3 times your guys walking away from that. And those are like the most offensive units in the game.
Yeah.
Right.
I just love it when people talk in absolutes. It's like, I just call it like the Sex Panther Warhammer conversations. It's like 60% of the time it works every time.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you just go into Slash and you always go last. But it only happens 60% of the time. So it doesn't really make sense, does it? So
right. I did calc out a keeper, by the way, and there's almost no chance for a keeper to bring you down. So
No. And it just gets flattened, right?
Oh, I get ruined.
Yeah, I mean, like that, like, okay, I'll go last, you do some damage to me, and then you're going to squish that keeper off the table. Yes. That being said, you get a heck of a lot of depravity out of it in the meanwhile, so that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Listen, those players
you can have another one in a minute by that time you've won the mission.
Good point. Good point.
Let's do just a couple other quick fun ones here that I thought was interesting. I compared to the Hell Pit. Why did I pick a Hell Pit? Because it's one of the worst monsters in the game. And it's on a 5-up. It actually does about the same damage as your non-Gatebreaker giants. But it's, whatever. It can come back alive. It's whatever. When you figure in its avalanche of flesh, it actually does slightly more, which is not great. The Dread Saurian was a fun comparison because he's a big 500 point insane monster who also has 35 wounds, but who only counts as one guy. Who actually, if you go read, I don't know when the last time any of you read the Dread Saurian War Scroll was. I did it
all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Who's not looking at their Dread Saurian War Scroll?
Who doesn't go to bed with that just tucked under their pillow?
It's on my wall.
Just like, I need to just memorize this scroll for my next Seraphim army.
Well, it's on the wall in my bedroom, a giant-sized version of it. It's right next to my Jervis poster and that kind of stuff. That's all there to sleep.
It's just in the bed next to the other stuff.
Next to Russ's framed goat trick model.
There you go.
Well, that's back in 8th edition where it belongs.
So the Dread Saurian was an interesting comparison because he has this 500 point 35 wound monster, right? And so he's actually very similar. His damage is way more swingy, super more swingy, because he's like 4 to 16, but he's actually about the same damage as the War Stompa and the Kraken Eater. He also has the same mortal wound charge they do, like D6 or D3 if it's a monster. He has the same terror thing that they do. Like, he's a very similar War Scroll. He has like almost the same rules as they do. So which was funny.
This is the thing about the damage on the Gargants. So people are like, oh, it's damage 2 or on the club, but it's a massive club and all these jokes. And it's like, the thing is, what it allows the book to be is way more consistent.
Sure.
Because if you had like 5 attacks at damage 5, right, then you hit, or say even go more than that, damage 8, say 3 attacks, you're either going 0, 8, 16, 24, right, of what goes through.
Yep.
So whereas if you're damage 2 with 10 attacks, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, up to 20. So it kind of makes the math less impactful, because you haven't got that swingy, like, oh, I missed, oh, I rolled a 1 for the damage, there's damage D6, I rolled a 2. It still exists in the army, but I think it was a good decision for the clubs to actually feel like, if you forget about the narrative of it should be this damage this size, and you think about the impact of what you do with the weapon, then it kind of does feel like a Titanic club, if that makes sense, but the rules may not reflect.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk all day. I think that's one of those choices that I would have preferred the less competitive choice. Just because for me, again,
for sure.
I like big numbers, sure, but you're right. I mean, mathematically, you're absolutely right? Like, it does allow for more consistency. Yeah.
You don't get completely ruined by -1 to hit as well. Otherwise, you could just not take the model out of your bag.
Still, -1 to hit still pretty hurts.
It's not. This army does not respond well to debuffs. Yes, that is true. Yeah. These numbers fall like a rock. I did do Witch Elves just for you, Byron. Don't worry.
Oh, thanks.
But I only did 20 Witch Elves, and I did not give them Mind Razor, even though that's
telling.
Even though it's entirely possible, but I didn't give them Mind Razor. I gave them the standard +1 attack they have on scroll, right? I didn't even give them +2 attacks. I'm assuming the shield variant, right? Or that they don't have a hero nearby. And then I gave them reroll to hits and wounds, because I am assuming they get some Witch Brew, and it's, they've either turn 3'd or turn 2 prayed their way into turn 3. This is the most common way people attack with Witch Elves, so.
Yeah.
I tried to be reasonable. And by the way, this is a unit of 30, but I only calced 20 of them attacking, because, again, you very rarely fight with all 30 Witch Elves. I don't like calcing big units like that at max efficacy, because that's never actually reality. Which should be said, that is a thing in the Giants' favor. If you're touching them, you're fighting with your whole profile, right? Like, that's not to be underestimated. So,
and that's why I think the charge is so important.
Yeah, sure. They do 16 to 24. Pretty good damage. Again, the important part there is to realize it's very unlikely, unless they're hyper buffed, that they bring your big boy down.
Yep.
And the last one was pure for fun. 5 Khorne Chaos Knights, one of my favorite offensive units in the game. A unit that I believe people are asleep on.
Yeah.
I've got 3 units of 5 in my army.
Hey, then you and I are simpatico on this. They hit like a Mack truck at 17 to 25 damage, outdoing nearly all of the Gargants. Now, that's assuming they're within range of the Khorne General's command ability and have the +1 attack, and you're on the charge with lances. So there you go.
Is that with demonic power on?
No, they do not have the reroll hits and wounds. Nope, I didn't give them that. I just gave them straight. That's just straight up the generals, like the Khorne generals, reroll 1 to hit and +1 to wound.
Yeah, +1 to wound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not give them like. Obviously, there are, and that's one of the things I'm talking about, right? Like, you say it as a joke. I'm gonna go ahead and that's the end of my presentation. There you go. Thank you, everybody. Yay, presentation. Oh, so you're back on camera now.
Cool.
Put your pants back on. All right, so
you can't see that anyway.
I'm approaching this like any Skype job interview. I don't wear pants.
When's the last time you've had a job interview, Byron?
They didn't go very well when I had them.
He's the interviewer, not the interviewee.
Yeah, right. It's one of those things that, like, you mentioned about with demonic power on, and it's a good point. Like, when you think about, when you're playing, like, let's take Slaves to Darkness, which I consider to be a banner book. I think Slaves to Darkness, Lumineth Realm Lords, I think are 2 of the best books that have come out in a long time. Marauders are straight jank and should be stricken from the earth. That rule needs to, we need to erase that turn their charge into a 6. But I'm willing to forgive that. Other than that, I really think Slaves is one of my favorite books. I have Slaves Army in everything except Nurgle, because Nurgle is an abomination and should be similarly thrown out into the ocean with Tom. And I love playing that army, and I think that book is so successful. But again, there's so many different ways to build like synergies and variants and get your, make that army your own, right? And to have units interacting in interesting ways. And that's just not here, right? Like what you see in the numbers here is largely going to be what you get. It, like, the performance of this army, numbers wise, falls within a very narrow band. Because there just isn't that much. There's nothing in the book that can push it up or down. You're not going to bring in allies. There's not going to be a battalion that pushes it. There's no wizard sitting around to demonic power. You know what I mean? Like, all these other things that would happen don't happen. It just is where it is. They are what's written on the tin.
They don't have ways to increase reliability, which is and that is what top tier books do have. They like straight up throw it out the window if you're Teach and you've got fate dice, or they have rerolls whenever you need them if you're daughters, or they have access to buffs, or that they don't get atrophied or stuff like that. Yeah. And removing variance out of the game is where strength becomes, because then when you make a right decision, there's a higher chance of it being a right decision. So I think that's kind of that comes into the list building as well, because the pieces you'd add in and customize. If you're going for power, they do that, and if you're going for theme, they let you go in whatever direction you want.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think that's actually my biggest. Like, I think it's my biggest complaint about the book. I don't like the way. In the end, I think the 10-20 thing drove the rest of the decisions, and for my money, I would have rather seen a different core mechanic, still focused on objective taking.
Like 8-16.
It could have been a different number, sure, but I would have rather seen it been more either combat dependent, like if they're fighting, like if their terror ability was if they're fighting and have slain a model, they like just take objectives or count the number of wounds they did or reduce the enemy by the number of models that were slain or whatever. Like the the Varangard command ability in the Host of the Everchosen.
I was about to say about that for the is it Knights of the Empty Throne where they've got that, where they go in and
exactly. Yeah, thank you. Knights of the Empty Throne, that's what it is. Yes. Like, I just there are other ways that could have played out that would have encouraged a different style of gameplay and also been less competitively powerful. Like, let's be honest, the 10-20 is like so rock solidly good, right? That it necessitates a lot of other decisions. I also probably wouldn't have based the tribes on the individual Gargants, because then that further constrained everything down, right? Like, when you read the narrative of the book, there's some really cool sounding tribes in there. Like, they give a lot of really cool narrative about like some awesome tribes that stomped around and did big things and like these different catastrophes roaming. I would have rather just seen stuff like that. Kind of like almost what we got in the Ogre book, right? Where you've got like, it's not like you have some Frost Lord thing. Like, if you pick a Frost Lord, that's the thing. It's, this is the Boulderhead tribe or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it has a personality to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying in many ways. I think there's a lot of scope for doing a lot more, but I think it is also, I don't know, maybe they were trying to play it safe. I don't know. We didn't get involved in that sort of design philosophy, but I'd say that when you think about a lot of books that come out for the first time in the first instance, and to think about ogres in 6th edition, they come out and they were kind of trash, right? I mean, and it took a while to kind of mature into what they end up being and be a bit more interesting, so a bit more varied. So I think as a start point, I think it's solid. Who knows in the future if they get a new battle tome in 3-4 years, what's going to happen?
Or a White Dwarf article. I'll take a White Dwarf article. We could get there with a White Dwarf article. Give me like we could do a nice White Dwarf special, and we could correct a lot of the things that I a lot of what I'm speaking to, right? That is my current sort of challenges with the army, right? Because it really is that Dickens quote at the beginning, right? I'm going to keep playing this army. I'm building this army. I'm painting this army. These models are super fun to paint, super fun to convert, super great kits, fun on the table, and I think they are competitive. They're on the weaker side of the fat middle, I would argue, but still, they're competitive. Who cares? It's that other stuff that's been kind of, riding at me, right? So let's play a little game here.
Okay.
Here we go. And then we can touch on some final bits, and then we'll call it a day. What would you love to see in the future for this army? Because I think you're right, Russ. This is like version 1, right? Now that it's in the game, it's in the game. We can have future tomes, we could have future articles, we could have expansions, whatever. What would you love to see? Russ, I'll start over on you. What would you love to see from this army in the future? You get to do anything you want. What's the thing you would want to see? You're in charge now.
Put it in the bin. No, I'm kidding. No,
that's it. I'm sorry. Russ has got to leave the call. No, go ahead.
No, I'm in. No, I don't know. I think it would be nice to get another unit between the two, like maybe a wizard character that's kind of like between a mega gargant, maybe just not a mega gargant or a man crusher, but just a gargant, like something in between, the two. And whether that could then be a hero, could be like a shaman tribe type thing, or it could be a unit of elite man crushers.
Oh, I love that idea. Yes,
like your what are they called, the guys with 2 handers in the ogre army.
Oh, like your
Iron Guts.
Iron Guts.
Yeah. Iron Guts. Yeah. So you have guts to your man crushers.
Quick side note: when I played that ogre army, I had 4 Iron Guts. Sorry, I had 2 Iron Guts left in a unit fighting one of my megas, who had 16 wounds left. I was like, this is fine. It's 2 ogres. They have 7 attacks between them because the champ was there, right?
Totally fine, right?
Totally fine. He hit all 7 times, wounded all 7 times, and suddenly I was staring down 21 potential damage. I made 2 out of the 7 saves and lived on 1 wound and then killed him. And I was like, oh, thank God. Oh, God, that was scary. But I mean, as a point to your earlier discussion of like, even one guy on 1 wound is real. Like, he still does the business, right? He still got there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I love the idea of the shaman or something like that. Yes. Like some kind of like religious thing. They're very, it's going to sound really stupid.
And Chogoth allies. There you go.
There you go. Allies. I'd be down with that. This is going to sound stupid, but in the book, they're very spiritual. Like, I know that sounds weird, but, like, they venerate Behemat and Yamog, or whatever the name of the ultimate, god beast father is, and they venerate them through these stories and stuff like that. I'd love to see, like, a giant, almost like a tail spinner or something like that, to go along with what you're talking about, like a shamanistic dude who tells the story of the giant's history.
Yeah, the history's always like passed down by word of mouth, and it gets more ridiculous.
Right.
I think I read one of the things is that fire slayers exist because they got squashed by a giant, and they're short. That's why they're short.
Yes. All their stories are great. Les, what about you? What would be your thing for the future?
I think I'd like to see another 3-part kit with maybe a special character option. Like that'd be like really cool, if you had like the king giant or something, and you could kind of like, maybe have one, because they're all quite the similar pose. It'd be nice to have like that counter option with another 3, so like another 3 tribes or another 2 tribes, and then a special character that maybe allows you to do something funky. Like you said, they're quite spiritual, maybe like some prayers, like some prayers to Behemat and stuff. That might be quite cool as a way to buff your big guys, and sort of like have that interplay. It'd be really nice to maybe if you take the special character, make the be able to just have it so that you could have just the big giants on the table and like do stuff like that. I think that would be kind of cool. Whether or not he buffs them to a point where they can become more damage output, or one that's a quicker. Yeah, or just even sort of like one that just sort of like buffs the ability to move, or the fact that they don't degrade. Hey, the Stone Mage has got that ability in the Lumineth book where it doesn't allow Avalon to drop. Maybe if you take the special character and he's within like the 24 bubble, then the rest of the guys don't drop, and then they're just constantly fighting on top profile, moving on top profile, and stuff like that. I think that would be kind of nice. I think it'd be interesting. It's always good to add more stuff to an army with a limited amount of war scrolls. So you look at some of the other books that have come out. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head now. That in my head, mine's gone blank.
Well, so even Ironjaws are pretty limited.
Yeah, exactly. Ironjaws, KO both have a pretty limited number of war scrolls, but then KO got their little Endrin Master in dirigible suit, and it suddenly opened up a whole new way to play the army because he made all your Balloon Boys battle line, right? It's just like sometimes a little thing can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's when they create a whole new army, adding to that army is really cool. You look at Daughters of Cain, like they've added a new unit with that special character. They took an existing range and then added new cool stuff to it. I think being able to maybe just flesh out the sense of Behemat a bit more, and also I like the idea what Russ said about maybe an elite unit of man crushers that you could build differently. Maybe that's.
I am imagine all if it was that idea, just big, maybe armored or something, or with like actually forged weapons,
4-up armor save or whatever,
or even ones that had that perfect the art of throwing stones, so it gives you more like a ranged shot.
As a missile unit with more rocks. Combat unit with better than damage 2.
Yes, or here would be a fun thing. Like, obviously, your Gatebreaker can smash terrain. We didn't talk much about it. It is a super fun thing that Gatebreakers can do. It's highly situational to whether or not it matters. I would like to personally smash every IDK boat in existence with a hammer, so I feel very empathetic to my Gargant. But we also didn't talk about Longshanks very much, but it's not a very good ability and makes me very angry. Longshanks is another ability that makes me very, very angry every time because it only works on normal moves, not charges or pylons or anything like that, and it's actually very hard to walk over units, and all of the printed GW terrain has a part higher than 4 inches. Every single kit that GW prints has an aspect higher than 4 inches, meaning you cannot walk over any of the current kits. Anyway, so slide aside. But I went around and measured all of them because I own them all, and I set them all on my table and measured them and was very upset. Anyways,
do you think we need to make you a Longshank stick?
I absolutely. I just need Longshanks to be like not 4 inches for God's sakes. Anyways, or work when charging. But the smashing terrain thing is super fun, and you turn a piece of scenery into rubble. It'd be really cool if that then impacted like the rock throwing of the Gargants when they were in the Breaker Tribe or something like that, right? Like if you're near scenery that now has the rubble keyword, you do like D3+1 rock throws instead of D3 or whatever. It doesn't have to be like the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It'd be so easy. Okay. Byron, about yourself. What do we got?
Very unimaginatively, I think quite a lot of the things that I in a lot of situations don't like about other battle tomes are things that this would really benefit from. So something like the Tides or the stupid Daughters crap, like that would be I have no love for that book. I think that would really add quite a lot to them, and then the ability to spend command points more interestingly, which obviously could be that could be because there is a kit that comes out and there's a couple of variants in it and they have the ability to do so. But one of the nice things about it being such a compact book is a single White Dwarf article already mentioned. Like if one thing was added to this book, it could be vastly different. So I think there's quite a lot of opportunity for that. The other thing that could happen is very small point reductions would actually make a huge difference because it's one of the awkward books like OBR, like Ironjaws, where you're like 150 points under or 20 points over, that type of irritating scenario. I think that changed, tweaked ever so slightly. It just like one more dude makes a big difference in a lot of situations. and or maybe you wouldn't be forced into taking a unit of 3 and then 2 and 2. You could be like 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 or whatever. So yeah, I think there's numerous ways you could do that, and those ways could bring in reliability, because I think it's an important part of allowing them to fight stuff that is in the tier above them currently.
Yeah, I think if I had my way, I mean, look, I'll be honest, if I had my absolute way, like if I'm king for a day, I would have gotten this book and went, nope, try again, and sent it back, okay? And that's not for anything competitive. I would have been like, here's a list of stuff you need to change. This is fundamental stuff. Get this out. And it would have been all flavor. The army would have come out and been probably weaker than what it is right now, but it would have been more to my liking. But going forward, I hope that we eventually see something like the Dominus kit, right? Like, so for everybody makes the Imperial Knight comparison, right? And eventually you got the second type of Imperial Knight who had this second kind of capability. So that's sort of your perfect world, right? Is that you have this different kind of mega with more options. I would love if they had a unique character build. Such a missed opportunity not to have unique characters you can use in a book full of unique characters. You read through the story, it's just over and over again, these powerful... Because the way the Gargants rise up is one of them is bigger and stronger and more dangerous and devastating than the rest, right? And they take ultimate control through a sort of mightier makes rightier, you might say. And, you know, the fact that none of that's there. So that's my perfect world. But I think what I would love to see is something that addresses, honestly, some of the fundaments. Like, I would love... This is such a long shot, but here would be a fun thing. Sometimes we change War Scrolls in FAQs. It happens. Doesn't happen all the time. Should happen a lot more. A lot more. But, you know, maybe we just say add the following command ability to the 3 Mega Gargant War Scrolls. Right?
I'd say ask Tom about War Scrolls that get changed in FAQs.
Hey, you got to watch out for that. It can be bad if it's too fast. Yeah, indeed. Yes.
You want to throw some salt that way?
There you go. Absolutely. I think that, that was such a... It's funny you mention that, because I think that does loom large in the minds of everybody, that KO War Scroll change was such a, like, it got such a negative response. But I think that at the same time, you look more recently, I think we tried it again. We changed the Plague Monk War Scroll, and people were like, oh, thank God. Finally. Like, and yes, there was some small number of people who were like, my Plague Monks are not as scary now. And I'm like, shut up, your Plague Monks are still really good. Get out of here with your jank math, like, re-rolling everything
25 minutes to work out the combat, right? So
it's like if you're playing someone and they need a piece of A4 paper with it, like blocks drawn into where the dice need to go. These are the ones that wound on 2s. These are the ones that do...
These you save at -1. These you save not. These are 2 damage. It's like, oh, nope, get out of here. Leave. Stop. I don't want to play you anymore.
I do think the book, actually what I change about it is not that much within... I think it lands really solidly in the selection of books that I think are fantastically... like, I would like a little bit more variety in there, granted, but I do put it with the other books, the Ogre book, the Iron Jaws and Bone Splitters book. Like, they do go together as things that they do make quite a lot of sense on the table. Nothing is too much more ridiculous than the other, and they won't give either player a bad experience. And I do think that is a huge crowning achievement of this book and those books, and it does make for extremely enjoyable, fun games with a lack of arbitrary bookkeeping, like we've just laughed about the Skaven. They are fantastic for that. Like, they've knocked things out of the park in certain respects that really should be the most important ones, like enjoyment and having a nice time, and like both players getting to participate, and things mattering that should matter and not mattering that don't as much, and stuff like that. So I do think there's a load of absolutely massive strengths, but they're just not the ones that people tend to talk about within our little community.
Sure. Can I give you my ultimate sort of dream fix, by the way, for the club problem? Do you mind if I King Solomon this club problem that has rocked the AOS community clearly? Okay, I'm gonna split the baby. You ready? On the profile, here we go. You have a line that says, like it just currently says. Let's just take like the Kraken Eater, for example, who has like 8 2-damage attacks with his club, right? He has that profile line, okay? And then underneath it, it says Shipwrecka War Club Mighty Smash. Okay? And you make 2 attacks on like 3s and 2s or whatever, neg 3 rend, 6 damage, or something like that. Okay? Whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then you choose when you attack which one of these profiles to use, just like you do with the gun on the front of the KO ship and the bow shots that the little Lumineth Sentinels have, and the 10 other examples of this in the game, right? Where you have a weapon with multiple different outputs. Then people like me who just want to see a real big number because big numbers are cool can pick the big number one, even though that's like mathematically worse. And people who want consistency will still have the consistency scroll, and then we all win.
There's no reason people can't make up their own rules in their garages.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just saying, maybe that
could
could join the FAQ
fiction
too.
Book, Vince.
I'll write the Vince version.
Put it next on your shelf next to the Tomb King book.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
We can cap the other guy at 14 instead of 10 while we're at it.
Anything else you guys wanted to touch on with the Giants? Anything we missed? Any of their particular abilities? We talked about stuffing in bags and why it's good, and the impact hits and why it's good. Anything else we didn't touch on?
They all get rolled into one, I think. Like reach, stuffing into bags, impact hits. They're all things that are underestimatable and are high quality but low quantity.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing we didn't mention was there is an outstanding FAQ that we'll know we need answered to do with the taker kick, which as it stands right now, the way that a lot of the scenarios work, and I think you guys touched on this really well in your show, like the way that the scenario objectives work now, if you kick the objective, like take like Battle for the Past, just as a simple example, right? If you kick the objective out of your territory, then suddenly it's only worth 2 points. If you kick one of the 2-point ones into their territory, it's suddenly worth 4 points. Because the way the language on it is worded is completely based on where the objective sits, not like objective 2 and 3 are worth this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, other than like focal points, which does make that distinction, right? It says objective 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on.
Yeah.
So, like, there is an FAQ. Can the taker do that? What I will say is, if that's how that works, if that's how the FAQ comes down, that yes, it works basically exactly as written, right? Because we all agree that's as written right now. That is how it functions. That's actually a really powerful thing that people are going to underestimate. The fact that you could just kick your own objective out on like a Battle for the Past type scenario, and you kick it into the middle, and now the opponent has no ability to score 4 points anymore. That is a huge deal. A huge deal that people will sleep on. So I await the FAQ next month on that answer, because that's a big one. So, yeah, absolutely. Cool. Russ, anything else we didn't touch on?
No, I mean, I think like we talked about a lot of stuff around the book. I think the grabs and like multiple activation can be quite strong for breaking coherency. I think reach is something we haven't mentioned, and I think they've got a lot of good reach. Rend as well is quite prevalent across the army, and I think as well for Longshanks, it's a rule that isn't massively impactful but can make a difference, and even if it's retreating over something to go somewhere else, or so you can't get penned in, or and obviously there's the internet debate about endless spells and wounds, which has been lots of fun to look on Facebook.
Oh yes, hopefully you can just walk over endless spells, because they're effectively have a null wound set, which I write as 0. I know null and 0 are not the same thing, but in my mind they are. That's always how I played my Doom Wheel, which, by the way, does the exact same thing. So,
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, right on. Oh, sorry. AOS, we have to answer, Les, I'm going to come to you in a second, but we do need to answer AOS Coach, who has like the most important question, which is, should we have a war scroll for Johan? Why are we ignoring this game-breaking model?
Definitely.
It would be cool if he was like a bit like the Pterodon like frog, where he runs into their army and causes like -2 bravery debuff. You run him into their army.
Yeah.
Like yes, he just kind of sits ahead of the army.
It's a pre-game move or something like that. You know?
Yeah, he's like a
Or maybe he's an objective that the opponent can run around the table, so you can kick and they can run Johan. So
there you go. Yeah. I'd love to see him integrated as like some kind of token that can't be like killed or something like that, like the frog or whatever, where just like you get to put him somewhere. Yeah. And
I
then
imagine him would be there with all the little giants. You'd have like a horde of them. If you took like 9, they all get like the little
Each
Johans.
giant gets his little Johan like pet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it out there. He should just be 10 points. Screw it.
There you go, 10 points. Like no attack profile, 6 save, but
worse than a zombie.
Right.
Yeah.
But he does move like 8 inches base because he is just. I mean, the dude's he's fast. He's fast for a
He's
human.
running. Yeah.
He's
Must
running.
run. Must run. Can't attack.
Run,
right.
He always runs 6.
Right. Exactly. Must run and always run 6. Yes. Exactly. So he's like slightly faster than all the giants. Basically, like he can keep pace with the running regular Gargants. Right. He's just slightly faster.
Yeah, he needs to be like 1 inch faster.
Yeah.
You can never quite get to him.
Right. Just always right there.
Amazing.
Les, okay, go ahead. Any final thoughts
Cool.
there?
I think Russ covered off the thing that I was going to mention, just like the reach. That 3-inch reach is massive. The amount of times back in my Stormcast days that people would underestimate the reach of the protectors. Back when I was, pushing Skyborn Slayers about, I think it works massively. You charge in screens, clearing them with your mortal wound damage, and then piling in and bopping the characters on the head afterwards with the 3-inch reach. It's people are going to have to deploy 7 inches back from the line that the chaff line that you've got in front of it, because complete a charge, get to pile in. If the newest hero, the nearest model's a hero that's 6 inches behind you, then that's a dead hero probably. So
yep. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. 3-inch reach combined with, if you do happen to like combo charge something, as you mentioned, Russ, at the beginning, if you can combo charge and you bring in all those impact hits, you clear the chaff screen and then your whole army is still going forward 3 inches off the charge, and suddenly you're reaching 6 inches deep. Like, we've all played against FEC Terrorgeist. We know what happens there, right? When you can then reach 6 inches deeper into the enemy army. You're getting way in the guts there. So, yeah, no, I agree with that. All right. Well, gentlemen, this has been a great time.
Awesome.
I feel there was not an overwhelming amount of salt. It was an appropriate amount of salt. I feel like we gave a good nuanced take, I hope. That was the goal.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been super fun being on, so I appreciate you inviting us
much
on.
appreciated, dude.
Yeah, very much so.
Absolutely. It was great to have all you guys on. We're going to do this again, probably with a less controversial topic next time. We'll just handle a book that...
It's fine, I don't mind, but it's good because it gets people talking, doesn't it? And I think it's good to have different opinions out there of what people think and sort of just have that discussion. Ultimately it's down to people to make their own mind up what they want to do and what they want to do with the information out there. So it's just good to talk about it.
Exactly. If we want to be playing chess, we be playing chess. It's nice to have different things for different reasons.
100% agreed. And what I would say is, anybody who was thinking about playing this army, if you think it looks fun to you and you think you would enjoy it based on kind of what we've described, please don't feel that just because there is some negativity and some of those reasons people are pointing to are completely justified and real, but that doesn't mean they're real for you, right? Different people have different psychographic profiles and get different things out of armies. So if you think this would be fun for you and you would enjoy it, then you should get this army and play it. I have been having a lot of fun. Okay. And I think that if you're the type of person like me, you will too. So that's what I'll say.
Absolutely. I am painting up one of these, and there will be a tutorial on Artis Opus if they want to learn how to dry brush his tummy. So if people would subscribe there, that would be massively appreciated.
Very nice. Hit me with the link, Byron. I'll throw it down in the description.
Yeah, will do. Thank you very much, dude.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This is an early show. Thank you very much. Facehammer team, I know I kept you guys very late. I know it's after midnight there, so you're all rock stars for staying up late with me. So thank you all very much. Thank you all out there for watching. Give this video a like. Help more people find their love for the big giants just like us, and that is really appreciated. More likes helps more people find the videos. So thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.